welcome to the Trish and Sarah Wrestling Podcast. I'm Sarah.
I'm Trish.
And this is our podcast. We talk about wrestling news and various topics from different promotions, primarily AEW, but also New Japan Pro Wrestling, WWE, and topics from around the wrestling world. Whatever we find interesting, and we hope you will too. We are a proud member of the Social Suplex Podcast Network, and you can find our content on our podcast feed, the Social Suplex Podcast feed, as well as on Twitter, Blue Sky, and YouTube. Please feel free to like, subscribe, and rate our podcast. We also encourage you to check out the Social Suplex newsletter, which is published every month and available at socialsuplex.com. Contains much information about promotions all across the world and features from various writers talking about various eccentrical wrestling things. Today is Sunday, August 16th, 2026, and Trish and I are noticing that the All-In card is getting a little bit more firm. I think we have more defined matches, more advertised matches. So we're going to talk through a little bit of that today to start, and talk about the build to some of those matches and where we are at. What is it now? Like 16?
2 weeks?
Are we 2 weeks? 2 weeks away?
2 weeks.
Jesus Christ. Feels, based on what I'm seeing on TV, feels like it should be a lot further out, but...
Some of them I don't think need to be further out. I think they need to be tomorrow, but...
Well, yeah. So let's start off with the AEW International title, which is going to be defended by Kyle Fletcher, the Protostar. I want to make sure I say his full name. And he is going to be facing his former Don Callis family associate, Konosuke Takeshita, as well as his current Don Callis family compatriot Kazuchika Okada in a three-way match for the international title. This was revealed in a promo segment between Don Callis, Fletcher, and Okada on Wednesday. Fletcher seemed very upset because he was unhappy that Don Callis was saying it doesn't matter as long as he or Okada wins. And Fletcher was like, what about what I want, Don? What about what I need? What about my needs? Which I really enjoyed. He seemed like he did come across a little bit like a trophy wife, like a younger trophy wife of like an old guy, but I don't know. I kind of like it. He was very dramatic. This was kind of, this is sort of something that's coming out of the whole Proto-Kata, Proto-Takeshita relationships that have been going on.
I did not want to say Proto-Shita.
Proto-Shita, that's what I was thinking. I was like, yeah, but I aggressively blanked on it, and I was like, what the fuck? Proto-Shita. That had been going on for like the last couple of, at this point, we're in years, right? Mm-hmm. But it didn't have any specific individual build, kind of. I don't know. This one, I think this is going to be a spectacular match. I'm not sure how hot this currently feels to me, but I also,
I think it's one where they kind of, it's a bit like the Takeshita Okada match at Double or Nothing, where they are just going to rely on the fact that people know that these are three very, very talented wrestlers.
Yes.
And you know that the expected output is going to be very, very high. And that's it. I don't think anyone actually cares who comes out with the championship. It's going to become a theme in a bit, I think. I don't think anyone cares like that. I think people are probably more interested to see whether, Fletcher stays heel. Yeah. Because obviously I think you can feel that tension of him eventually being thrown out of the Don Callis family is coming. Yeah. Whether that's wise or not, I'm not sure, but that's something that we'll see with time. But it's a case of getting everybody in there. It kind of flows through the path for this year, although it's been a little bit sketchy with things kind of going in and out, especially around Takeshita. And it'll be interesting to see. For me, it's more about what he does as well. So obviously coming back from the G1, I expect him back on Wednesday, and what his pathway forward is, because we talked about him at Double or Nothing about a step up, and we've not really seen that. He just kind of got the belt, put it in his backpack, and then lost it for the G1. So will it be something that they put back on him, or has he been moved to something else? Are they going to do something else? So it's three guys that it feels like an obvious match, but it's also something that they've not built massive enthusiasm for, but will be, I expect, to have a good atmosphere on the night just because of the standard of all three in there.
I think, like you said, it's just going to be a spectacular match, and I don't know, sometimes you don't need more than that. And
I don't think you do for a mid-card title.
I'm kind of okay with that on this one. Yeah. Like, that's not one where I'm like, No. Like you said, it'll be interesting to see what happens afterwards, who ends up winning, although, like you said, I kind of don't care. I don't really have a horse in the race, as it were.
Yeah, right.
All right, so next up we have the AEW TNT title, which is going to have a Falls Count Anywhere match between Kevin Knight and Darby Allin. This is an odd one to me because I keep waiting for Kevin Knight to have his match with Speedball Mike Bailey, and he hasn't had it yet. And that whole relationship seems to be done. And I'm kind of like, huh. Okay, I guess he could fight Darby. Sure.
Speedball's like the elite hunter of 2021, isn't he? Like Dan always says that, I just couldn't, he's right. Like, he literally was like, I'm going to take out all the DCF and then I'm just going to get beat up by all the DCF and then do other things.
And lose
and
to them.
and we're just going to ignore the fact that, like, we haven't done this Kevin Knight Speedball thing. Even though when, like, Knight was facing Omega, the fans were chanting for Speedball.
Right.
Like, in the build-up, because that's the match that you have the expectation of, because you've broken up this tag team.
You'd think
so
if you were going to
funny.
have Speedball lose to a bunch of dudes, you'd have him lose to Kevin Knight. Like, why are you like you're not holding the match off because you don't want to beat either guy. You've clearly beaten Speedball a shit ton of times, so why not just have Kevin beat him?
It's a weird one. Yeah,
it's very weird.
That would make sense. And then if you want to do something down the road, you've got that in the back pocket then. And
right.
if you really want to reinforce Kevin Knight as a heel, then that's what you do. But this one is kind of been put in an interesting position though when you think about it, right? Because you'd think that Darby, having been the face that was attacked at the end of Double or Nothing,
right,
and then having been beaten the week before Redemption, that he would come out on top in his own match. But you also look at it and think, Darby is the last person that needs a TNT title run. You know, it feels like going backwards from where you got to in the spring. And then also, like, Kevin Knight, for all he's beaten more people than anybody else with a TNT title and all that stuff, it hasn't felt like that. It hasn't been emphasized like that. And it's really weird to say someone that just main evented a pay-per-view, but they just, I guess, and then part of that is because of the way that they did the Omega match, and that's the way it should have been done. But it doesn't feel like he's actually, it's a weird one. It doesn't feel like he's moved up in stature and that sort of thing in terms of results. He just felt like he was like a run-of-the-month pay-per-view challenger. And so he still feels like he needs that big win. So this is one where I think there's a tendency to be like, oh, it's about the performance, but it's beyond that with Knight now. You know, you get to a point you need to move to that next level. It needs to be about results and those sort of things. I think you're better to have Knight have this victory here in Wembley, and again, focus on like, these are our new people coming through, you know, who are going to add to this field that we have at the top, than it is to give Darby back a title that he's won all these many, many times. Right. Especially when he moved up and it felt like he became something more than the mid-card belt on this thing. It just feels like it'd just be like going back to your spot, you know, which is something that we've criticized him for in the past, but it would be literally like, yeah, back to your spot, back to that TNT thing, that's it now, you know, you're out of that title picture for the meantime, that's it. So yeah, I would just keep Knight on this one.
I would probably do the same. I don't feel like being in the Don Callis family has done anything for
Knight at all. Not at all. No.
At all. So it's kind of like, you know, you'd like to see him separate from them, because I almost feel like that, I mean, you'd worry that it wouldn't give him, but it's just, I don't know. The Don Callis family is ridiculous at this point. They need to start losing fucking members. Like, they're all over TV every time, and it's like, do we have a single other heel faction? Like, we have two, but only one and a half.
1.5, yeah. It's you're either in a Death Rider, or you're in a Don Callis family, or you're not doing much on TV.
Right. Or you're in the band and you're kind of not doing much on TV.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah. Okay. So then next up, we have the AEW's Women's World Tag Team match, which is the Divine Dominion versus the Brawling Birds. That's Lena Cross and Megan Bayne versus Alex Winder and Jamie Hayter. I don't have much to say about this, Trish. This is a weird thing for me as an American. Like, and I want to talk to you as a British person. I feel like as an American, whenever an American thing goes to another country, like wrestling has been very indicative of this. It's like the people of that other country will not cheer for the Americans. They will only cheer for the people from their country, which I get. You know, everybody likes nationalism to a reasonable degree, but I feel like is that accurate? Like, do you feel like you care about this match and you're really invested in it because the Brawling Birds are British, and so as a result, you're going to be really into it when it happens?
Do you know, it's that funny thing, right? We are not a country that likes singing our national anthem.
No.
In these days,
I can see why.
Right? Yeah, well, exactly. But like, even so, like, I wouldn't call this the most patriotic country in the world. Like, they might get excited about football, whether it's, England, Wales, Scotland, whatever. But other than that, like, we don't really do that. So, and I think you're right. I think it's completely outdated, and it should be based on people want to see the best wrestlers, and they want to see the wrestlers that they're invested in most win. And that's not really location driven. It's just bizarre. And there's just that thing of, so we still have to do this, we still have to do that. And it doesn't mean that they won't get a pop just because, you say, oh, they're from Britain and that. But it shouldn't be the basis of these stadium shows at this point. It shouldn't. It just,
Right.
it, and then the fact is this is another one. So this is one where you've literally had this plan since the spring, right? Like February, March time you start putting this together, and then you've done nothing to build it up.
Nope.
And then they win it, but they win the chance to face them by Willow pinning Mercedes in a tag match at Arena Mexico. So they don't have the agency of doing it themselves. The promos have been weird at times. There's some things that just keep my kind of eyebrow raised. I'm like, what are you doing? Who's responsible for that? But it's like, yeah, I guess look, for me, it's like I can see a point in taking them off Divine Dominion because I think you'd want to get both of them into the singles division.
Yeah.
And Jamie's had runs in the singles. Windsor's had a brief run, but obviously can do more. So it kind of feels like the right time to switch it from that perspective because they can do more tag. Although it's not like they do much with the tag titles and the women's tag titles to start with. But I can see a point in that, and in getting like Megan Bayne especially into the singles and going from there. So there is point to it, but yeah, there's just not much to talk about here because they've not done much to build it, and it's just but it's lower card, isn't it? It's very run of the mill. We're just running through the lower card.
Yeah. Some of the stuff, sometimes when it's a match like this, I say to myself, okay, how many times are the Brawling Birds, assuming that they win at Wembley, which I think you kind of have to at this point, how many times are they going to defend these titles on TV before losing them? And is that going to be like enough for this? And I don't know. We'll see. I kind of question it, but maybe they'll put something together and it'll be interesting, but I don't know.
Sure.
All right. Next up, we have the AEW World Title #1 Contender Casino Gauntlet match, which is currently got 3 participants, with Andrade El Idolo in the #1 entrant spot, facing MJF in the #2 entrant spot, and Tommaso Ciampa has also won a entrance into it, and otherwise I'm sure it will be filled with a bunch of singles people who lost the Continental Championship. Continental Challenge Cup matches. But yeah. And hey, maybe Bobby Lashley.
He doesn't have to get pinned.
Yeah, exactly. So why wouldn't he? I'm so bitchy. Okay. So I have a couple things to say about this, but I don't know if we'll have to deal with it. Probably more touch it on in the world title match when it comes, but I'll probably touch on what I want to say about it when in the world title section, but yeah, this is fine. They do this every year. I think it'll be hopefully good. I feel like last year we talked a lot about the women's match was better, the Casino Gauntlet, than the men's match. So we'll see if they're able to put something together or if it just becomes kind of, overbooked weirdness. So we shall see.
It's one of them that I think the first time at Wembley will probably be the stronger of the things because it was like a new concept to that stadium environment at the time, right?
Yes.
And now we've seen it, so obviously it's a bit like with the WWE with their Royal Rumble. Like every time they do it, it then becomes like, what's the big surprises? And it needs to be bigger than the previous ones because you've kind of seen it already. And that's sometimes where they can fall back. Oh, you need to have a really strong story of it. Obviously, they're going to try and root it into the Andrade MJF stuff. I think you want to leave the belt stuff to the other bit, I gather.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I thought that's what you meant.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think they're going to try and route it through that. It's a weird one because you'd feel like that would be a natural singles match on this show, but it's also a match, but because of the belt stuff, I don't think you can do. So they're going to go through this method. And it's one of them, I think I could see Andrade actually winning it. I don't think Max needs to win it because he has the other fake belt, but that's where some of the logic falls out of this completely in general. But it's just, that is just like a pop merchant kind of factory, isn't it? It's just like people want to see who's coming next. There's some people in Mexico, like Mr. Coda, have cancelled like a booking that weekend, or a show's been cancelled. So you can see that there's kind of people coming in, and it's just like, who else have you got?
Right.
And then we'll see who comes out of that. But yeah, it's really hard actually doing a preview of this, right? Because you look through the lower card, and I'm like, that's great. I don't care.
All right, and then next up we have the Continental Challenge Cup final match, which is going to be question mark versus TBD, or TBD versus TBD, or question mark versus question mark, however you would choose to do it.
It's not. It's question mark versus John Moxley.
Yeah, well, I was trying to be a little bit, but it is question mark versus John Moxley. We hadn't talked about this. The Continental Challenge Cup. We didn't get into this last week. We didn't have time. I feel like I missed a collision, and all of a sudden they had this going on. I was like, I don't know where this came from. I feel like I was like trying to find it today, and all I could find was the selection show, which I wasn't going to watch.
There was a Moxley promo on Dynamite a few weeks ago where he went, everyone's buzzing about this cup, and everyone was like, what the fuck is the cup? And then they announced it on Collision. It was like, they're all buzzing about, like, they've not told us. How are the locker room buzzing? Nobody knows. It was missing, like, it felt like it was missing a pre-tape. That's what it felt like.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I mean,
that was what it was.
Fine. I guess I'm just confused a little bit by it because, I think, first of all, so it kind of ties a little bit into the men's world title match stuff, but I'm trying not to do too much of this. But it's one of those things where it's like, it feels like the first 2 rounds are pretty easy to say. It's just a question of like, which of 4 guys is going to be the final against Mox. And it's also like, you're going to have another one of these in 3 months. So why are we doing this now? Like, what are, like, I don't know. It just sort of feels a little bit unnecessary. I think the matches for the most part have been good with 1 or 2 exceptions. But, again, it's one of those things where I'm like, oh, okay, sure. Yeah. Okay.
It just feels like a TV time spinner, and it's funny because they trademarked the Continental Cup back in March, so they obviously had some sort of plan on it since then, which is funny because I don't think that trademark held up, considering they've had to change the name, and I didn't think it would because, like, the Continental were like a tire maker. I don't know if you have if they make tires over there.
I googled it, and there was a couple of Continental Cups that came up. So
okay, yeah. So there was a Continental Cup was European football trophy in the 90s. They also have a cycling Continental Cup that I think they still have trademark for. And Continental Cup was the Women's League Cup until a couple of years ago before it became the Subway Cup. So we now call it the Sandwich Cup. So so I wasn't that surprised they had to change the name. It does feel like a bit of a pointless tournament, considering like this is supposed to not really be a proper belt anyway. Like it was supposed to be another thing. And it does feel like a much of a time winner, and I'd rather see someone like John Moxley in something that you can invest in a program for something like All In. So something thrown together kind of in this kind of format, even though there are people that obviously have story around him, it's a bit weird. I did look at the lineup when it came out, and I looked at it, I was like, that's very Collision 2023.
Yeah.
I can look at it and go, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
it's like,
yep, there we are. But I think I thought the favourite going in was Jay White, because people have been speaking about a Jay White Moxley match potentially for All In prior to this announcement, and obviously when Nigel McGuinness got announced, I was like, oh, okay, that could be easily in there. I'm sure he'd want to do something like that, but for me, it's like I would never be in favour of that, because to have people work all year and then end up in multi-man matches and lower matches down the card in gauntlets, and then like one of the big single spots on the show is taken by like Nigel, a commentator, who's had like moments of Forbidden Door and stuff, and had like you've had their moments.
All In 2 years ago too.
Yeah, so I know like people like that nostalgia stuff at times, but for me, I'd be like, okay, yeah.
It's a very WWE thing to do.
It is. It's very WrestleMania. It's the things we used to complain about WrestleMania when they did that, and then like Dean Ambrose would be on the pre-show to against Baron Corbin, to bring that back to John Moxley. So yeah, we'll see. It's again no interest at all going in, really, and it's fine. I think if you like kind of the knockout cups just for good matches, then you're going to get your good matches. Have they given you many lines to invest in? Not really. So we shall see.
Part of what made the first Continental Cup so good was the promos that they did around it. And
the C2, yeah,
the C2, and they haven't really done any of that here. Like, you've had a couple here and there, but nothing that's really grabbing onto you. So I don't know. It's like, okay, let's see what happens.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? It's like that had the whole promotion around it. It was a breakaway from the very WWE type heavy kind of stuff at the top of the card with MJF and Adam Cole and everything like that, and the Devil and all that stuff. So it felt fresh, it felt different, and then it had like the backstage segments, the New Japan style kind of straight reaction stuff, and we all kind of invested into that. Whereas this is much more like their old school kind of tournaments, and it's like we don't even have a bracket because we're going to do it like FA Cup styles. The blind draw, it's going to throw everyone out there. Here's a match, 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 and you're not getting that kind of. You don't get that
excitement about who's going to face who next.
Yeah, and then the lineup hasn't. It's the other issue is the lineup doesn't have that many people that you'd be like really excited to see the final of. So I don't think as much as I enjoy Jay White, I don't think people have had that reaction to him coming back. I don't think pairing him with the Dogs has helped that in one iota.
No, it has not.
You've been better pairing him with somebody kind of who's been on TV more regularly as part of AEW, I think, in that regard. So you can do that. I'd be interested what they do with him, because you can have him as like somebody opposite like a John Moxley and the Death Riders. But I also think that I wonder if they'll go back to their original plan before he got hurt last year of putting him with the Death Riders, because he could make a good kind of step up opponent to Ospreay to Moxley. So yeah, kind of interested in that, but yeah, and that brings us to so that is all the lower card, and that brings us to the top 3 advertised current matches at the top of the card.
Yes, we have the tag title team match between Cage and Cope and the Young Bucks, which we talked about a lot last week, so I don't know that we have too much more to say about this. Again, nothing really spectacular happened this week with the build.
No, it's a lack of focus build, and I'll talk about it more after, I think, than I will before.
Yeah. And then next up, we have the AEW Women's World Title match, Willow Nightingale versus Mercedes Moné. Another thing we talked about extensively last week that I think we're both very happy. They had a pre-tape segment this week where Willow was doing a up close with Renee, or taping an up close with Renee Paquette, and got attacked by Mercedes, which I thought was fine. See what else they do in the next couple of weeks. I thought the promo that they gave like the week before was so good that you kind of wanted a little bit more for them this week.
Yes.
But they did not get an in-ring segment. So,
and I know like people are frustrated because they're not advertised for this one coming as well, and obviously Kenny and Willow are advertised for two segments each essentially. But it's like it's the reality. That's where we are. But they do need to close well on that one. They need to do maybe just do like a mixed tag. Maybe do like a big tag or road 2 this week, and then that one needs a big closing promo as well. And I think you can kind of get there, and then it's just all about which way you go to result and how you follow up with that.
It's unfortunate because it's kind of like that Revolution where you had the Tony Storm Hollywood ending. The women are overperforming and the men are really underperforming, and yet instead of rewarding the women with more time, the men are still getting more time, and you're kind of like, I don't know.
It's difficult, isn't it? It's difficult to change that, but and I don't think anyone worries about them delivering in that spot, no. Especially with it being Mercedes, with it being Willow, and it'll be great to see Willow in that high profile match in the stadium.
Yep.
And I look forward to it. That out of this whole card, that is the one match that I'm actually invested in who wins.
Yes, 100% for me. Agreed. Well, I had my screaming thing about executing Tony Khan if Cage and Cope beat the Young Bucks, but
Yeah, we'll save that. We'll save that for later.
It's a ridiculous. That outcome is so ridiculous that like I'm not even going to entertain it. So, all right, and then we had our AEW World Title match, which is Kenny Omega versus Will Ospreay.
You can't laugh before you even said the match.
I'm sorry. What the hell? Every week I think, okay, well, it can't get worse than last week. And then every week it somehow gets worse than last week. This week was, we had an opening segment where Will Ospreay came out to the ring, talked about the fact that his grandfather died a couple of years ago, talked about the fact that he was really happy that he was able to go to Arena Mexico again and entertain people. I thought this was like, I don't usually care that much about this stuff, but I just watched this promo and I was like, this is really kayfabe breaking, right? Like he talked about the street fight and he was like, I was there to entertain. Like he didn't talk about the match he had with Davis like it was a match, like he wanted to win or he was upset with Davis or anything like that. It was like, I was there to entertain people and that's what I do. And that's what my grandfather always told me to do, was do a flip. And I just was kind of like, okay, but aren't you like trying to get a title? Like, isn't this part of that? And then he called out Kenny, but Kenny didn't come out. Don Callis came out. We had a long Don Callis monologue, which led to Roppongi Vice attacking and Mark Davis attacking Will Ospreay in the ring before Kenny. I don't want to say crawled out of the back, but like sauntered very slowly out of the back so that he could quote unquote rescue Will Ospreay and then threaten him with the kind of language that you really don't see outside of children's cartoons. Like, I was like, what the fuck is he saying? What are we doing here? And then they both wandered away. And I still am like, because I saw a lot of people this week being like, well, this is, the Death Riders are done with this story. So, now we had to move to the Don Callis family. And I was like, wait, what? The Death Riders are done with this story? And like, in retrospect, that does make sense. But I'm also, again, feeling like I missed something somewhere because I didn't feel like him giving them the patch back and walking away was like the end of this. Like, I guess it makes sense. I understand that it's the end of this chapter, and I'm sure there'll be some kind of situation after he wins the title. But I was like, that just seems arbitrary and weird. And then the Don Callis family, again, as Tunnel Talk today put it so beautifully, the lowest ranking members of the Don Callis family had to go out. And Don was like, well, if I have to be involved in this, I'm not sending my best guys. Like, what the fuck? And I just like, I don't know. Like, am I supposed to be rooting for both of these guys or one of them? I don't want either of them to win at this point. And we've talked about this a lot, and I don't want to over discuss it because I do think there's a point where maybe sometimes you hit an end point and you'll look back and go, oh, all these things were leading to the end point. I can't envision an end point that makes sense with what we've been seeing the last couple months. I can't envision an end point. And the part that kills me is like I said, I listen to Tunnel Talk every week, and every week those ladies have some very gentle suggestions for this feud that they could do very easily that would bring it out of the complete nonsensical insanity that we've been seeing and into something that resembles a coherent narrative. And yet every week, and I was thinking to myself, I'm like, who's writing this? Whose ideas are these? Why is that person being listened to? Is no one like, hey, maybe we should stop and think about this and have like a phone call where we walk through what we want to do the next couple of weeks? Because this just makes no fucking sense to me. I don't know. Like, it's fine. But again, for a match where your outcome is already determined and you know that it is, there's nothing else here. Like, I'm kind of like, I'm sure they'll have a good match, but even that I'm questioning based on some of the like creative choices that I'm seeing on a week-to-week basis.
There's like a few things on this. So I think first point is that you are also going against their previous builds. And I wouldn't say the build to the second one was particularly strong in Toronto, but the build to the first one was incredible.
Yeah.
And it was very simply done. Like, you can't replace me, and basically in New Japan, and you'll never live up to my legacy and that sort of thing. And Kenny was playing like the comic book heel, but at the same time, he's like, he has enough depth to him to make it work. And his promos were fantastic in the pre-records and then in the press conference as well. And the match played out. It was fluid. It came through as one individual kind of thing that was all linked together. And this does not. So this is a mess at this point.
This is a fucking mess.
Right? So I can kind of get it. I can kind of get some of the ideas around it. That they obviously had this long thing planned out from the start of the year in terms of Will's kind of role, and including like United Empire and everything in New Japan, and now they're appearing with him 2 weeks before the match after he said he didn't need any help, and he told Hangman he didn't need any help.
He told Hangman goodbye.
Yeah, and he told him, I don't need to trust you because you're close to Kenny, even though he's been closer to you on TV in the last year. And then it's like, okay, so then I don't need any help. And then Kenny says, well, I don't need to give you any help. And then you're going to get help from United Empire guys. But why couldn't you get that help when you need to go to the Death Riders? That doesn't make any sense. And I think you're putting too much emphasis on United Empire because you want to tell this story with Newman going into the Fall and at Wrestle Kingdom. But it's like, these people aren't really known on TV. They had a week on TV. Like, you're 2 weeks out from this massive title match in Wembley Stadium. Why are we introducing new characters into your story? And we've taken the Death Riders out of the story because you want to kind of focus it on Kenny and Will. But what you've done is then just replace it with DCF, and we've taken that kind of thing away. But Will's still replicating them in some ways. His dress at times, his gear is very much Death Rider-ish. He's using John Moxley lines in promos, so they're not away, but you're kind of cutting them off. So you've done that thing that we kind of struggle with sometimes that we didn't see last year. But rather than these kind of stories interacting, intersecting, we've taken it away and we've put it in its box, right? We put it in his box, and it's not even in a box with the rest of the DCF stuff. It's just in the box with part of the DCF stuff, which is bizarre. But it's like, yeah, it doesn't have that level of detail that you would expect from Kenny Omega, quite frankly. And we can see that. So it becomes disjointed, and we do these things. And then him giving a babyface promo where he's running down Kenny Omega for not being at Arena Mexico, to the point where, like, you've got Brian Alvarez having to go out on the air and basically say it's health concerns. It's like, why are you attacking that? That's so fucking stupid, because that's a promotional fuck up as well. Why do we draw attention to that? I wouldn't do that either. And then to the point where you do it, but you're doing it in front of a crowd where you're going on about, you know, he wasn't in Mexico, he wasn't in Mexico. The people in Vegas don't fucking care who was at Mexico or not. They care about who's in Vegas, because that's who they're going to see. And secondly, they like Kenny. It's the Roman Reigns thing all over fucking again, isn't it?
Right.
Like, he's not here, he's not here, he's not... Like, they like Kenny. They like seeing Kenny. They didn't feel like Kenny was away. Like,
he was there that night. So, like, you know, what does the Vegas crowd give a shit if Kenny wasn't in Mexico when he was in fucking Vegas, where they paid for a ticket? Like, so when he came out, they fucking went nuts.
Of course they did. Like, well, for nuts for them, it wasn't a
well,
I was
about to say, for that crowd, it was one of the bigger pops. Yeah,
so you are undermining yourself by doing that, because they're going, well, we'll just boo you then. Like, we like him more. And that's what they did. And it was just like, and then Kenny's doing that kind of cartoon villain. I think Rich Latter on One Nation Radio pointed out it's very similar to what he was doing when he was facing Tanahashi, when they switched from him winning to losing in 2019. And it's like, yeah, it absolutely is. He's gone into like full cartoon villain mode, because we need to make sure Ospreay's are more over, but it's not helping him. It's not helping him. And it's like, we are at a point now where it's just get to the fucking match. Let's, you know, because that's going to be the high point of all this. But everything leading up has made it weaker and not stronger. And that's the opposite of last year. And the opposite of last year, things that come in, is the detail. Because there was so much work done last year. And you can see, like, from Double or Nothing to All In on the men's world title scene, you could see every single week built to that match. And when they had weeks like, they went to Kent, Washington, right? And they knew that Page was, you know, that's probably the place that he was going to get less reaction because of like the matches he had with Strickland in that area and things. And so then you just put him in a match with like a big guy, they put him with Beast Mortos, and you get through that, and then you go and you do your big things in front of the big crowds. That was the wrong place when you know you've got a smaller crowd, you know, under 2,000 in a building, to do the big rah-rah speech thing. It didn't work. It's like, it just didn't make any sense to do it there, and he had no motivation. And I don't want to keep comparing things to last year because it sounds like, but this is the difference, right? He had no motivation, and it doesn't feel like Kenny has any motivation. No. And last year, you knew Jon Moxley's motivations, whether you agree with him or not, whether it was walked heel or whatever, right? But you knew the motivation, and you definitely knew Hangman's motivation. And it wasn't just, rah, rah, I'm a babyface, I deserve belt, give me belt, please. Like, it was, you know...
Like, I'm sorry your grandfather died a couple of years ago. Like, many of us have dead grandfathers. I don't deserve the AEW world title. Like... You know, it's just one of those weird freaking things where it's like, again, you could come into something, and I'm, again, stealing more ideas from Tunnel Talk. You could go into something so easy from, like, they had such good chemistry and such good stuff in those promos where it was just the two of them back in the, you know, after Kenny lost, after Ospreay lost. Like, those were so good. Why did we move away from stuff like that and into this kind of bullshit? Like, you could play off on so many different things with regard to Ospreay feeling abandoned that don't end with somebody being like, and you didn't go to Mexico, and I did, and I got to entertain people because I'm going to make all the fucking towns, is what that boiled down to. Like, Roddy fucking Raw.
But he's been doing that shit for a little while now, and it's like, I don't understand it. He does the same thing where, like, I gave my neck, and it's like, well, Kenny nearly fucking died.
Right. Like there's half a dozen fucking guys on this roster that gave their fucking necks. Like, you know what I mean?
That's not enough in this story. And it doesn't matter that you gave your neck, because you gave the agency of coming back from your neck injury to the fucking Death Riders. Right. So you can't say, I overcame this, because you didn't. You let them, they aided you to overcome it. They helped you overcome it. So it's not something that you own yourself. And you've got this other guy that did everything himself, who's now playing the heel. And I understand, like, his whole thing is like, you know, we need to make sure Will's the bigger kind of face coming into Wembley. But this isn't it. And, you know, they've got, obviously, this week, and I thought they did well with the past couple of weeks in terms of the way the promo was set up and the way Kenny held back to make sure Will got the big thing at the end. And then the way they did it in Mexico, where it was 1v1 and he got to use weapons and all them sort of things that were obviously not seen in that building, so you can get that thing up. But then it was like straight back to like, oh, so I won't hesitate. It's like, we should have got through this at Forbidden Door. What was the fucking point of doing the swerve thing to then do all this? Like, why are you still telling that story? Why are you still telling, oh, he doesn't have any friends and he's bringing people in for Japan? Like, the whole thing is just like, just get to the fucking match. I just do the fucking sit downs, do a video package on the last week in Glasgow. I know you feel like you have to have him out there, whatever. But I would just do that and I'd just go fucking home and then just like start again. And then really think about what you want to do with this title reign and the promos he's going to cut and the way he's going to wrestle and all those things. Because I think when we thought about the way that he would be set up this year, we thought this was a really simple thing to do.
It isn't that hard. He was so much better as a babyface when he just went out there and fucking wrestled the opening match every week, right? Or he talked to the other people, other babyfaces about like liking them and being friendly with them. Like, you know what I mean? This is just, they over-egged this pudding to the degree where it's like you said, you want to see less of it.
Yeah.
I don't want, like, just get to the fucking match.
And that sort of thing. So when his big thing, the big challenge for Will going into the fall is, can you be the champion that has good matches rather than the person that has good matches that has the belt? And that's going to be a huge challenge. We got a question on Will from Cloffy. I'll do the pronunciations, okay.
All right.
How do you see Ospreay's first reign going? Long, short, big opponents, or mid-carders?
Well, I mean, based on how this promotion has been lately, I feel like it's got to be mid-carders because, either that or he has a short reign, right? Like, people got to lose to him. So, I don't know. Part of me hasn't even thought that far ahead. And part of me is frankly terrified too.
Right.
Sort of terrified to think that far ahead.
You've got the obvious programs, haven't you? They're gonna do the Moxley program.
Sure. They'll do a Mox program. They'll do an MJF program.
Yeah. And that's the one hanging over everything because he's running around with a fake world belt. While the world champion is not running around with a belt.
Thank you. This is the part that chapped my fucking ass on Wednesday. Kenny Omega, the world champion, comes out without his fucking belt, and then you have fucking Max with his fake fucking belt running around screaming his head off about he's the actual world champion. Okay? What a fucking joke that is. And like, you want to reheat CM Punk's vomited on nachos, you go right ahead. But like, could we do the same thing that you did to him, which is pretend that you're not actually fucking doing it and ignoring it completely because it's fucking bullshit. Like, that's the other part that irritates me. Like, did Max like it when fucking Punk was doing this to him? Like, what is the point of this? Where are we going with this? What is it going to like, how is this making anything fucking better? It's to me, it's not. I don't know, but whatever. He's gonna have a program with him. Hopefully he loses. I'm sure it'll be some fucking whatever, and just fucking lose the belt already, buddy. Jesus Christ.
I just think it's a massive mistake because you're basically putting kind of the background kind of doubt underneath your biggest main event of the year. You're putting doubt under having, Ospreay's first title reign because it's going to sit there, and they're acknowledging it, which is worse.
Yes.
So as soon as they start saying, he's a problem for both of us, and we're kind of acknowledging him, he's got the fake belt, even though he can't even do it properly because he has no grounds to it. It's not just delusional heel is one thing, but delusional heel normally has a reason, right? Punk had a reason. When you look back at like Shawn Michaels 94, there was a reason. With Ric Flair, there was a reason. There isn't a reason here. You lost clean. Yeah. You tried cheating after that moment with Ospreay, and Kenny kicks out one. There is no reason. So it's not even beyond delusional heel. And he's not even delusional because he knows well enough that he needs to enter the gauntlet. So there's no logic to this. All it does is undermine everything else around it but it emphasizes that he's staying at the top of the card. That's it. That's the whole point of it. And
it's to make sure he's orbiting that stuff. So even if he's doing gauntlet related stuff, you still have him in the background knowing, it's bullshit.
Yeah, it's a status thing, right? But it's like, there's no benefit for Ospreay here. Like, and then what? So like Max, like even if you did the Andrade singles match, you couldn't do that at Wembley now. What is it going to be for the fake belt? Is it going to be like the fake belt with the Joe Punk match at All In 23? Or is it going to be for the national belt? But you can't have that guy losing while he's wearing that fake belt. You can't. Like, we're going to have this title swatch around that's got not even a real title. Like, as soon as you do that, you start diluting stuff, and you're diluting your world title at the very top. And that's dangerous. Like, that never ends well. And it's like, oh, but we could have this big match between MJF and Will Ospreay. You could have it any fucking way you like. You don't need to do this.
Well, we've
You
also
don't
had
need
a
to
bunch
do
of big
this.
fucking matches between MJF and Will Ospreay to, varying degrees of critical acclaim. So, like, it's not like we don't know that these guys haven't wrestled. I don't know. I'm just, whatever. It is fine. I'm sure there'll be people happy to praise it or whatever.
I just think that there needs to be other people involved, and I don't know how you do that. And then for Will, it's about how do you keep that momentum if you're not facing the more experienced people? Because generally in the first reign, you want to face kind of more experienced people or kind of wrestlers that are much bigger than you, because you're not the guy in terms of carrying everyone else. Like, they're still looking at you to become, it's like they're looking at you as this is your first chance to be a champion. We want to see how you perform in that role rather than how you aid everybody else. That comes later down the line. So yeah, the big important thing, I guess, is people looking at it compared to last year and saying at least there's a plan, because you can see people lined up, and I can see that. But I think it needs to go beyond those two for it to kind of really hold. And yeah, there needs to be some effort put in. He can't be in he can't be halfway down, like stuck in quarter 6 in the cards and that sort of thing. He can't be unadvertised. You've really got to get behind him as your top guy. And the more talk you think, you think, are they going to get behind him and move MJF to the side for a little bit? Would it require MJF not being on TV? I don't know. But it's like, I don't know if I have the confidence in that he's going to be treated as like the number one guy in this company after All In that I probably did a year ago or 2 years ago. I don't have that same confidence now, because they haven't done that in the build. There's been moments, but like even just look at like Forbidden Door, right? We chuck that as a main event, like literally on the night. We don't emphasize it. It's not the biggest built program for for the Owen final, for the men's Owen final. We don't do any of that, and then all of a sudden it's like, there you go. And there's been lots of other little things like that all the way through since he's come back that says to me, like, that's not the focus of everything right now.
Right.
And some of that is because everything's a bit messy everywhere else, and you can kind of see that the last few months. I think that's really played out on screen the last few, since Beach Break really, but probably just a little bit before then, probably since Dynasty, to be honest. But it's like, yeah, it's a case of you've really got to get it behind this guy at this point, and also you're now going to have to overcome some of the build stuff, and I think that match will deliver, and then you go from there. But you need to take whatever momentum you get out of that match and just make something out of it. What do you think of so this is Kenny's one babyface run probably in this company?
Brutal. I was thinking about that this morning, where I was like, I was like debating that because I was thinking about our podcast and what we are going to talk about, and I was like, a lot of people were like, really aching for this babyface run, and we're really pushing for it and arguing for it, and boy, it feels like a giant waste. Like, you just, he's not going to defend again, right? It's 2 weeks away, so his one title
doesn't feel like it.
No, against Kevin Knight, which again, good match, whatever. Not really the thing that you want to leave going, wow, what an incredible. Think about all the people he hasn't defended against, right?
Yeah,
and you're just
all the people he's built rivalries with that are in AEW.
Right. Yeah, and it was Kevin Knight, and that's it. Like, and not only that, Kevin Knight, and then a bunch of weird promos and segments that where he kind of comes across as a heel but doesn't come across as a heel, and just, I don't know, it just odd shit. It's just kind of a giant letdown. Like, this is the last, if this is the last babyface big time run for Kenny in AEW, that people really wanted for a long time. Like, what a disappointment.
It's one of them. I think people come out of it remembering the beginning and the end and nothing in the middle, and maybe that's enough. But I do think as time goes on, we'll be kind of like they were with Danielson, right? We weren't invested in the Danielson run, but that was a very similar feeling that people had, right? They remember the beginning, they remember the end, and they were disappointed with what came in the middle. They expected more. People expected that to go much longer as well, didn't they? And then it didn't. And it's one of them, like, they enjoyed the moment, but that was all they were kind of left with, and that feels similar in some ways. But we shall see. That they are at 39,043 as we talk. So I think we originally had like 40 to 43k as our estimate for like months and months. I'd probably up that a little bit to like 45 just because of the weeks that they had post Beach Break. But that kind of looks like where they're going to end up around. They get a big jolt sometimes when they play with a map, and we should then scramble trying to figure out whether it's been comms or not. But it's in general it's like it's between 100 200 a day movement outside of like big map movements. So I'll go around that, I think, for that. And it's just how they shoot it, because they're going to do the same trick that WWE did with SummerSlam, where the stage is actually a bit more forward this year, which is the right thing to do. Especially, we always know about the red seats at Wembley constantly. And so that makes a thing. And it's, just make sure you shoot it properly, mic it properly. Hopefully the crowd is a little bit more infused than they were for most of the card in 2024. And we'll see how we go. It should be... it's always
40,000 people is an incredible achievement, and despite the part about it being Wembley and the seats and everything else, like that's you can't knock that at all. And I think it's important for us sometimes to take a step back and be like, yeah, they've sold quote unquote 40,000 tickets, so that's a pretty good achievement.
Yeah, and there definitely were people that didn't think they'd get to 30 at one point.
Yeah.
We've always been you could see the trend that we didn't think we've always thought it was going 40 to 43. That's been our kind of estimate since the start. So yeah, we're up at 45, and good on them. We'll see how they finish up. But and it's one of them, like, they've used a lot of tactics. That means I can't see there's a way of them running Wembley next year because of the things they've used. But I would never be against people who get good deals, if it means that it's a difference between them being able to go or not, as much as it's frustrating for people who bought at the start. It's that difficulty. You're more loyal, you're going to suffer more, but also, like, I don't care what promotion makes out of it. I care about how many people get to do things, right? So that's that. So the one of the unconfirmed matches yet for this will be the trios title match, which will be the Bandido, Brody King and Hangman Page team against a Demand versus, everyone's kind of aware, you can see the setup now.
Swerve and some friends.
Swerve and some friends. So what did you think of Swerve's kind of little return to TV this week?
I thought it was good. I think I was expecting more out of it. I watched it after everybody else did, so a lot of people were raving about it, and I was like, oh, this is going to be incredible. And I thought it was good. I thought it was a decent setup. I'm kind of interested to see where they go in the next 2 weeks, because I do feel like you have to do a couple of things more with this. I feel like if you're not going to announce who his partners are ahead of time, then you got to hint a little bit more aggressively. But we'll see. I'm interested. I think for me, the thing that I'm interested in is this is a little bit not what I would have expected a debuting people to be involved in or to do. And so I'm really intrigued by that. And I am kind of excited by that more than I would have been. It's probably one of the things about the show that I'm like kind of most intrigued by, because I feel like I can't see how it's going to go. And like you said, like with Willow and Mercedes, it's not so much about the winning people as it is about the like, how is this going to work out type situation.
It's one of them that you can see the thing behind it is that everything's been put together late. You can you can see that this is like a long-term plan. Of course it's not, but it's a way of getting an idea together that I think when people started to kind of express the idea of Swerve and the New Day together, what I found quite interesting on social media was a lot of people were kind of discussing like, oh, it's just like one of those stereotypical wrestling things. Like we throw all the black guys together, right? And I think, they need to make an emphasis that this is a very much a talent-driven group, potentially. It's not something that's being kind of dictated to them. Because, you've got to be quite careful of some of the stereotype sort of things. And because of, unfortunately, the history in other companies that then plays into your own. And that is a big thing. I think that's an important thing to consider on this. I think for me, the thing that moves me away from it is how different. I mean, again, I understand they left WWE as heels, but I think for me, it's kind of interesting how different it is from their previous perception in WWE as being like these happy faces where, they're going to be with Swerve, and Swerve is a fucking killer right now. So I'm kind of like, hey, like, what's this going to be like? That's totally different than what I thought they were going to be doing. So for me, I agree with you, right? Because I fucking hate when you see that all the time, when they're like, put so-and-so with so-and-so. And I'm like, it's just because they're all black guys. Like that there doesn't seem to be any agreement on this other than that. So like, but I think that intrigue of the fact that they're so different is what is preventing me from having that. Yeah, so I think there's definitely a way that you can do it. That you can play kind of, even if you want to play for like Elite Links, being that you're in with Hangman, and potential of doing something with like Kenny and the Bucks, which might not be as quick as maybe people think it would be, but it's always on the cards, is you're kind of an anti-elite in a way. Like, you are the opposite of that group, and you can play off
Right.
that as well. And I think, yeah, there is some intrigue in seeing them not coming in and playing around with all the unicorn stuff, but we always kind of prefer that. Like, we always prefer when people try to do something different when they come in,
Yes.
rather than
Yes.
replicating what they did in WWE and playing off WWE nostalgia, because that's
Right.
so easy to do. Like, we have tag team champions doing that like constantly, but it's like, that's not interesting. It's not interesting. It doesn't really show us anything else. And I think there is an element of thinking, of being wanting to be kind of determined to prove to the audience that you want to be there, that it's not just because you were potentially going to be forced into a 50% off cut, you know. So you have to show that there's a willingness to be part of that product to a fan base
Right.
that's very much passionate and anti WWE and like the most hardcore element of it. So there's a part to that too. And that also comes from a bit of the PTSD of how many people have come in and that's not happened, especially
Right.
people that have succeeded. And that's a difference between people who succeeded at the top level in WWE and the people that haven't, right? So there is an element to that. I do think it's a natural position to Swerve to go back into, and I think even if this is only a small part with Paige, and I don't expect it to be massively, massively long, but it's like, what it's done is kind of reset the character a little bit. So this is where they're very, very clever, and the people that look after their stories are like, I compared it to the Omega and Ospreay segment.
Oh,
They had
God.
much, much, much less time, and they like mopped up so much kind of story stuff between them this year, right?
Yes.
So they didn't hide away from the fact that they were tagging at the first part of the year. They didn't hide away from the fact that, you know, they brought Paige and Stip straight back into it, because you constantly need to have that kind of in the background. Fine. Then you do the thing where you basically say to Swerve, like, you turn heel, you do all this shit, and you got nothing. You got nothing. Like, what are you going to do now? And the whole emphasis of having the two groups is like, oh, here's all these enemies you've made, so you're going to need someone outside. Now, maybe they didn't get that clearly across enough, but they did so much mopping up that it's like a restart for him, and that's where he's at the moment, right? You've had this very disjointed year where you've pretty much played gatekeeper for Kenny and you've played gatekeeper for Will before their kind of big match, and you fell into that slot that Paige has kind of vacated when he's gone out. He's not silly, is he? But it's kind of clever, I thought. Like, yeah, I don't want to be a gatekeeper anymore, so I'm going to take myself out of that. Clever. But he's fell into that slot, and it's made things difficult for him. So he now needs like a restart. He needs a refresh, because you did that heel turn and you've lost all the momentum from that because of what you've done since. You can't call yourself the most dangerous man when you've got like the Ospreay neck thing, you know, like when he's like, oh, my neck's fine, and then winning a Forbidden Door. So you have to now do something different. So it does make sense to kind of restart him. Whether it's the right path or not, we'll find out, but at least it is a path. And
Yes.
it'll get him on the card. I think that's part of it as well. And that's what happens with these ones, because Wembley's such a short show compared to what they can do in like Texas and that, because of the lack of time with the curfew in the venue, that you are always going to have a lot of people kind of thrown onto the card. And I think the other thing with him is he struggles that he's still a heel, because there are no baby faces practically on this roster at a high level to work with.
No.
So he's worked with Kenny this year. Maybe you can go back to that post, you know, him losing to Will. You've worked with Will Ospreay, so there's no reason for you to really be in that bit in the fall. You can't really work Hangman singles, there's no reason to.
Nope.
You're going to do it as a trios, okay. And then there's Darby. And that's it. Like, who else have we got at the top of the male roster that's a babyface, a strong babyface at the moment? Like, there isn't anybody.
Nope.
So, in a way, and you're, the third highest heel on the card? Maybe, you know, I don't know what you count Moxley as. I'm going to count him as a heel for now, because he is going to be heel when he faces Moxley, when he faces Ospreay. So you are the third highest heel on the card, and there's no one for you to work with, really. And you've also got, you know, they're trying to elevate the likes of Knight and Fletcher, and you still want to keep a card strong. So it's really difficult in that situation of being able to find him something else to do, because there isn't the spot. There isn't the spot. And I think you had a choice there of whether you put him into doing something like this, and then you get the kind of rub for him of being involved with somebody like New Day, Daybreak, whatever we're going to call them. Or it's like, there would be no value of being on the show. There would be more value for him to be off the show otherwise than there would to be on it. And I do think there's a thing where, you know, I felt like the last couple of months, people keep waiting for that second big singles match. You know, you've got the freeway, the Takeshita Fletcher Okada one, but it's not a marquee match in terms of names for a lot of the audience, right? They're not the big focus of TV, even though I think Fletcher will absolutely get there. It's like at current, they're not. So they've all been waiting for, who's this big second marquee match going to be? Who's it going to be? Who's this big, you know, like the equivalent to the Okada Omega singles from last year? And there isn't one. And I think the heel face dynamic is part of that. I think there's some personal dynamics that are also part of that. And then the other part is the time. It's just the time of what you have in the stadium. But so in terms of debuts and people coming in for WWE, obviously that one is feels very much imminent, to Sir Tony's word, because that's the one he likes at the moment. Then you have Kairi Sane, who obviously joined Barry Bloom's management company, who we're told from people in Japan is kind of 50-50 at the moment over whether to join Stardom or AEW. So that's kind of a little update on that. And then they did debut another tag team. Feels like this didn't happen, actually, to be honest.
Like we retconned this didn't exist.
But yeah, they debuted another tag team on the Detroit Dynamite.
We had Motor City Machine Guns showed up on Collision in Detroit. They opened the show with an in-ring promo, and we have not seen or heard from them since. Just weird shit. Like, that's one of those things where it's like, if you're going to do this, where you're going to have these guys open the show and come out like that, then you better have a fucking plan for them. Even if it's a low-level tag team and a run on Collision, like, put them on the fucking show every week or a couple weeks in a row. You know, doing this and then having them disappear make no sense to me at all. Why hire them? Why debut them there? It's just fucking weird.
They've definitely told you what level they're coming in at, right? It's very much like the Dogs, right? They've said, this is their level, we're going to kind of put them out there. But that's one of them where you're right, like, don't do it before Wembley. Like, I know you want to do Detroit, fine, but just don't. There's no benefit to it. So this is where we're talking about the Strickland thing. Like, you don't have to find them a spot, right? So they've managed to find him a spot, but that would be a priority because Swerve should be one of your priority people on the roster. Like, Motor City Machine Guns, they're not going to push them as a top tag team. So then, like, what benefit do you get at the debut? Maybe maximize that at the right time, and we just kind of shucked it in.
I mean, I'm fine with them not coming in as a top tag team. Like, that's fine. God knows we have enough tag teams that we could be doing stuff with that we're not, because Cope and Christian don't wrestle. So, like, why wouldn't you have then say, okay, we're going to have a high-level main event tag team scene and then a lower-level tag team scene, and we're going to have these guys, you know, you could make Collision a fucking tag team. I don't see why you wouldn't, right? Like, God knows there's enough guys these guys could be facing, but instead it's like, nope, they're going to just disappear. We debuted them before Wembley, like you said. So a lot of people like, I wonder where they're going to be at on the Wembley. Probably the pre-show, if at all, right? If at all. But it's just one of those things where it just makes no fucking sense. I don't know. It's sort of one of those things when people talk about like the lack of thoughtfulness when it comes to AEW sometimes. Like, this seems like a prime example of that kind of stuff. It's not hugely damaging stuff. It's not the end of the world stuff. It's like fine, but it's kind of lack of thoughtfulness where it's like, again, you're not getting as much as you could out of some of these things.
Yeah, it's just little things, isn't it? But it's just kind of an amusing one that was like, we brought them in, and it's like, and are we doing anything? We didn't, they didn't, like, that was another one. Obviously, they did Grand Slam Mexico, we didn't make a thing out of it, and then we come back this week and there's still nothing on it. And you're like, that's so weird. It's just a strange one, but there we are. Just a question before we finish on AEW stuff from Prince. So this is around, obviously, things that have been going on with the produce shows. Should AEW vet the promotions joining MyAEW better in the light of the whole produce shenanigans, or should they allow every Tom, Dick and Harry to join the service in order to grow it and make for a better Triller alternative? Is there a risk of attaching the AEW name to all these promotions through the service, or is it a risk that won't materialize?
This is a tough one, because part of me is like, you run this risk when you attach your brand name to other brands that you have no control over and that you cannot manage, right? So you want to make MyAEW, you want to call it MyAEW, but you want to have it be an umbrella that encapsulates a bunch of other promotions over which you have no control, right? And if they book sex pests or whoever, you have to then deal with the qualifications of that. Like, again, you don't have to have that on your show, but you've associated with those teams in the past. Like, that is an issue. At the same time, do you then say, okay, we're going to call this something other than MyAEW and lose some of the cachet of getting people to be involved in it? You know, it's a tough thing, but it's also one of those things where it's like, you got to kind of think about this stuff a little bit more when you know what I mean? I feel like there's a degree to which, but I also am like, is it, part of me is like, sometimes I feel like people just get like, they're choosing to give an opportunity to have pay-per-views from these different promotions on a service that they own. I don't always know that like, I get it, but part of me is like, does that then mean that they're responsible for everything these promotions do? Like, isn't that kind of a little bit ridiculous? Like, but at the same time, it's their brand associated with that. I get it.
Yeah, so it's that thing, isn't it? Because you're creating essentially something to rival what was an independent media content platform.
Correct.
But you're not independent. So you
No.
are, everything you do on that or everything on it will reflect in some way on your own brand. Because you're putting your name on that content platform. It is MyAEW. It's not like a separate thing that's, you know, it doesn't say at the bottom underneath, like, you know, partnered with AEW or something like that. It's literally MyAEW. So I think, yeah, that's just about how you contract things. You definitely need to have those sort of clauses in there that if you need to sever relationships, you can do, or you need to have ways to address certain things. And obviously that situation, which has kind of blown up in the last 2 weeks on social media with all sorts of kind of allegations, I think that's all we can kind of put them at the moment until we hear more, is kind of, it's difficult because this is like the first month, 2 months really, where they've kind of had this real kind of extension to their independent kind of library that they're putting on this platform, and you're already met with these challenges. So I guess it's something that you need to like see quite quickly and then try and address quite quickly, and that means that you need to get to the bottom of what's going on with produce in this occasion, and then to deal with it and then work from there, because people, you know, rightly or wrongly, they look at AEW they expect them to do the right thing.
Yes.
They expect the
in a way
brand
they
to
don't
do the right
expect
thing.
in a way they don't expect other companies to do the right thing.
Yes, and you know, that's not something completely fan driven. That's something that the company have kind of latched onto as well. You know, Tony Khan has done like the thing he did with NFL Network. You know how he described WWE and AEW.
He's leaned into it.
Exactly. So that also means that then you have a responsibility in a sense that, in a moral sense, that maybe you wouldn't have if you were a different company. So yeah, it's a difficult one. I think that you've got to be very, very careful, especially because you know what independent wrestling's reputation has been like for however, God knows how long. And we're seeing more and more instances this year of things where it's like, maybe we haven't made as much progress as we hoped we had. So there's something to keep an eye on, and yeah, and there should be pressure on them. You know, if these things need to be looked into, and then if there's wrongdoing to be found, then you need to make a decision. And if you don't, then that will reflect on AEW. That's the way of it. So let's move across to something that you've been asked to talk about. But literally, I know our entire Discord for like a few days. They are desperate. Hours? They are desperate to hear your thoughts on this. So over in WWE land this coming Friday, Kevin Owens faces CM Punk in Toronto for the WWE Championship, and they did a second promo this week on SmackDown.
They did a second promo this week on SmackDown, and everybody on Saturday morning when I woke up, because I wasn't awake during SmackDown.
You're on British time. We've been through
I'm on British time.
this.
What can I tell you? They were, well, to be fair, I was awake during part of SmackDown, but I was a little drunk and I went to bed shortly afterwards, and I wasn't watching TV. So people were like, you got to do this, blah, blah, blah. And I did watch it, right? And I found it to be, instead of the hilarity that I often approach Punk segments on WWE, I found it really depressing, like in a sad way. Like, I think watching this and again, they're fucking wrestlers, they're fucking actors, but the way that it came across to me, Kevin Owens just looked so defeated during this promo. Like he just looked defeated, and it was a very low energy promo from both guys. And Punk was very much in his rote, promo delivery. Like, he has a very specific style. He just seemed to be kind of doing what he was doing, but it just kind of, and thinking about it, I'm like, I don't have any, maybe I'm totally wrong here. I don't have any confidence that Kevin Owens is going to win. Kevin Owens is going to win on Friday, right? I assume that Punk is going to beat him. Maybe he won't, right? But my assumption going into it is that Punk is going to beat him. So we had this promo, right, where Punk comes out and he's like, you didn't like me. You haven't liked me for 20 years and it's over some arbitrary thing. Why don't you tell everybody what's going on? Go ahead, speak. And then he pauses for a second, and then he says, "Isn't it wonderful to be alive and be in Boston, Massachusetts on a Friday night?" And it was one of those things where I was like, Jesus fucking Christ. Like, you literally told the guy to talk and then you interrupted him before he could. And then Owens delivers the promo and he basically is like, "You look down on me. You were an asshole to me. All my friends hate you." And he's like, "Name him," which is, he knows.
It's the same as the Drew McIntyre thing, that.
Right.
He knows exactly what he was doing. He knew exactly what he was doing, that, yeah.
And then it turned into a thing, and, you know, Owens is like, "Everybody who knows you fucking hates you," which, again, seemed... I part of it is this way, right? As for all that I hate worked shoot stuff, and part of it is because I feel like when you do that stuff, it's never accurate. I'm going to talk about that in a second. I just felt like Kevin Owens was like, "Here's a humiliation I had to endure. And the person who humiliated me has not just been successful, but he's thrived. And now we're in a situation where he's going to humiliate me again," because he came out and basically Punk's comment was, "You're still fat and you don't do..." It's that bullshit that the workout bros do. And I get Punk is now a workout bro, where he's, again, as his trainer came on and told us on social media, it's totally and 100% natural that, you know, many 48, 49-year-old men gain this kind of muscle naturally. And I believe that completely. He ate his vegetables. He's eating lean, all those eggs. And he's like, Kevin doesn't do the work, which basically means he's still fat and he won't go to the gym. Right. And that is the kind of stuff that I hate, that because I don't see how anybody can look at what wrestlers have to do and think that regardless of their size, I feel the same way about Kenny Kingston, is regardless of their size and think that, you know, Punk is a guy who always looks 3 minutes into a match like he's going to puke his fucking guts out. Like, looking at his last match that he had with Cody, he's chalk white in the face, bright red in the body. He is many times often blown up. And he wants to kind of argue that because he has some big muscles now, he's some kind of epitome of athleticism that Kevin Owens is not. And that just chapped my ass, right? And so I'm listening to all of this and it's like, and then Punk has this other line where he's like, "You were the greenhorn who stepped into my locker room and thought you could be disrespectful to me." Because the other subtext is that they're talking about Ring of Honor. And of course they can't name Ring of Honor. It's an indie promotion that they were involved in 20 years ago. And it's like, it just felt like one of those situations where I'm like, this is Kevin Owens' first match back since being out, as they kept telling us, because I had that British guy screaming at me again. He's been out 17 months with a neck injury. Never thought he was going to come back and all that other stuff. And now he's going to come in there. CM Punk's going to humiliate him in the ring, face up to a humiliation, make him look like shit again, and then beat him in his home country. Now, maybe he won't. Right? If Kevin Owens wins, that changes a lot of this for me. It makes it a little bit better, not totally. And Kevin Owens is an adult and he gets to do this. And like I said, my sympathy only goes so far. He chose to resign with WWE. He knows exactly what kind of company they are. He's an adult man. He knows. So my sympathy is somewhat, but I just feel like this is one of those things where I'm like, really seriously? And then one of the things I also really thought was thoughtful, and this is somebody in our Discord named Shabugan who had a bunch of comments about this, and I made notes about them because they were so, I thought, perfect. And they said, if you're not going to actually talk about real shit, don't allude to it. You know, quote, "We worked for an independent promotion. You worked for Ring of Honor and you did a shoot interview about it already. Like, for fuck's sakes, you could have just said, I would love to tell this room of people why I don't like you, but more than half that story is held under an NDA that you signed. If you're going to do the worked bullshit, actually do it." And then they went on to say, they actually have 2 world-class talkers in the ring and they're doing the single worst version of the feud they could do. Punk asked them to be specific about which friends, and Kevin says, "You might think I'm only talking about them, but only 3 of them hate you." And the crowd is dead for all of this. And, you know, I don't care that Punk was a dick in the locker room 20 years ago. Talk about the fact that he says he's the best in the world and he landed on his face when he tried to do a moonsault. You know, and that's the part that I think bugs me so much about these fucking Punk worked shoot bullshit, is because they never actually talk about anything that would really piss him off. Like the fact that his wrestling is shit, or the fact that he was, you know, quote unquote, "I'm better than you for 20 years when you were gone for like fucking half of them." You know, when you were at home. I guess that's the kind of stuff where I'm just like, whatever. But the other big thing that came out of this is Punk at one point says the line, "I was hoping for Obafemi and I got endometriosis," referring to Kevin Owens' endometriosis. This, and folks, I'm going to put on where Trish and Sarah focus on women's anatomy, because let's put a little hat on for those gentlemen of you who are quite familiar with what this is. And let's, like, I feel like we should have a team to talk about anatomy. But endometriosis is a disease that affects women, or let me put it this way, people who have wombs and uteruses. Okay. The endometrium is the lining of the uterus. Now, part of the endometrium, the top level of the endometrium, sloughs off during your menses, but there's other tissue underneath that. And endometriosis is a condition where that tissue starts to grow outside of your uterus. It can end up on your fallopian tubes. It can end up on your ovaries. Sometimes it can end up on your pelvic floor. And in bad cases, it can end up on places like your bowels or your bladder or your lungs, okay, which is kind of fucked up. And the symptoms for this include pelvic pain, heavy, painful periods, pain when you have a bowel movement, pain when you have urination, pain when you have sex, exhaustion, infertility, right? And the other kicker of this, because this is a women's disease that affects, what should I say, people with uterus disease that affects people with uteruses, most people who have this condition wait between 5 and 10 years to get diagnosed with this, okay? 10 years to get diagnosed with endometriosis, all right? I don't understand what any of this has to do with Kevin Owens. And I'm going to tell you right now, it was really easy for me to find out a lot of information about this because there's a thing called Wikipedia, which is free for anyone who has the internet and a phone, which I'm fairly confident CM Punk does, despite his protestations to the contrary. I also have a uterus. I'm confident CM Punk spends a lot of time at the NXT Performance Center with young women. I'm sure you could talk to them about maybe any of what they're dealing with, but Brandy Rhodes supposedly has endometriosis, as she talked about it in People magazine. He could talk to her about it. I'm sure he has done a ton of research on this, and I'm sure there's going to be some kind of Instagram post or tweet or something where he's like, oh, I really care about it, blah, 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 blah. Here's a link to something or bullshit. I don't understand what this has to do with Kevin Owens. If you wanted to call Kevin Owens a pussy, just fucking call him a pussy. Like, that's the other part of it. Like, be quote unquote real. Be quote unquote a tough guy. Do the bullshit language you want to do. Don't do some bullshit like this where you're making fun of a disease women have for a reason that is completely undetermined. Like, did you say the wrong word? Are you trying to say, like, one of the symptoms of endometriosis is not obesity. That's associated with PCOS, which is polycystic ovary syndrome. That's a completely separate disease, right? So, like, maybe put a little effort and thought into this shit before you start trotting this crap out there. Like, that was the part about this that just chapped my ass a little bit. And I feel like as a woman, I wanted to say something about it. So I don't know, Trish, if you have any thoughts on this. I just thought this was just a fucking sad promo. And I think the thing that depressed me the most about it, and I know that one of the defenses of Punk whenever you say something about him is he's not the worst wrestler in the world. There are way worse wrestlers than CM Punk. I think the part that chapped me, and like I said, maybe this changes a little bit if Kevin Owens wins, is that CM Punk was pulling this shit 20 years ago, where, like Kevin Owens said, if he had hit CM Punk in the mouth for what he was saying, he would have been blacklisted. He wouldn't have had a career. Mm-hmm. And he's still doing it because Kevin Owens' first program back is CM Punk, who's going to humiliate him in the ring and then beat him in Toronto.
I think he has a shot. I think he has a shot, but I don't think that changes how I feel about the promo. So, because you want to make that the biggest moment possible if he is going to win, and you did everything to undermine him here.
Right.
You messed about everything. Every time you tried to give an answer back, you went into your corny, kind of pre-prepared kind of lines. You're alive in Boston, fucking bollocks. He went back to other things. He kept doing that as well. He kept cutting him off. There's one point where he actually cuts off Owens mid-sentence and gets involved. His facials, everything about it is there's no willingness to work in that. It's not, we're playing a being hatred of each other. No, there's a way
they actually fucking hate each other.
There's a way to do that and then still work at it. And then, as I think Trevor Drame had a credible thread on it this week. Like, you literally just recycle what you do with Eddie Kingston. But it doesn't apply here. Because this is, as Owen said, someone who main evented WrestleMania with Stone Cold Steve Austin. And actually main evented WrestleMania twice.
Yep.
It's not somebody who failed, who has never won a big championship. It's someone who's won the WWE championship. It's someone that's had those experiences. And you're doing this thing where on both sides, because of the way that you're telling this. So Punk is only there because he got kicked out of everywhere else. Great. So now WWE is the loser company. Okay, well done. That's a great thing for you to be doing on your own programming. And then on the other side, this guy's never made anything. He's only won a WWE title and main evented WrestleMania twice. Really building people up here. And as much as like the Cody Punk stuff was just gibberish, at least they kept it within the form of the company for the most part. This one is we're back to, we're shooting and we're doing all these things, and this babyface that they want to cheer in CM Punk, they're not really able to. And to the point they chant Owens at the end. If that's your aim, then great, but they didn't exactly get loud there either because you've not done anything to really get any of them over. And the thing that I was left with this is not just like the stupid lines and stuff. There was a few things. So you mentioned the worked harder, I worked harder than you and you never actually did anything to work hard. And it's like, that sounds so stupid for a guy that's been in WWE for 13 years, pretty much non-stop outside of injury. Where you're right, he sat at home for 9 years and then all of a sudden, like, we're going to come back, and then Vince said no. So then you had to wait for another company to actually get its feet before you could just walk in there, like, all head held high. That's not working hard. Like, just because you cut weight and all of a sudden, like, oh, you're all blown up and whatever, that, again, is not working hard in wrestling, is it? And it's that same mindset. I actually wonder if he believes that mindset, because we've heard that mindset before when he was doing all the Collision stuff, when he did the promo about, people missing days, which his camp told us was about Malachi Black, but everyone, believed it was about the Elite. That sort of thing, it keeps coming up. So I wonder if that is actually something he believes, that he works harder than everybody else, which is whatever. You just been off TV for 5 months, and were you supposed to be at TV for some of them? Guess we'll never know. So interesting timing to do that. Like, okay, and you're not turning heel, right? Because everyone's like, oh, you see, I heard the YouTube comments when I watched the segment, and they were like, oh, we're ready for his heel turn. I'm like, yeah, we've been saying this for 4 years.
I'll be fucking Methuselah before his fucking heel turn comes. I don't want to hear it.
So there was that. There was also the bit, as you mentioned at the end, about Ring of Honor, and about like how you walked into my locker room and you were disrespectful, and it's just like, this is your whole persona, is you are disrespectful to authority. You were the voice of the voiceless. You were the voice of that, you were called skinny fat, as you emphasised. Like, why are you going on about all these things that you now need everything to be this corporate sort of thing? You might as well just get the Cody Rhodes suit on at this point. There's that. And then the last thing is, for anybody that thought that you could have done a CM Punk versus the Elite program, this is your fucking evidence that you can't.
That you could not. Yeah.
Because it won't be some incredible thing that you think that's going to shake up all wrestling. It will look like this, and it'll be even fucking worse. Because this is an environment where he's controlled. And it still looks like this.
It wasn't fucking good. Even if you take out the stuff about Punk, like, it just wasn't good. Like I said, it was low energy. It was boring. It was references that were extremely oblique, unless you had a whole bunch of, wrestling knowledge or backstage knowledge that, like, does your average Boston crowd sitting there, 8,500, by the way, let's point that out, in TD Garden, where I think they were 13,000 the last time they were there. So, we're not lighting them on fire with this fucking feud. I don't know. It's like I said, I would like to have funny anger for you guys, but I'm not.
Yeah, we don't have it.
Funny anger.
It's not funny.
It's just fucking depressing.
Funny. It was sad. You're right. It was
sad. It was just sad.
And the cadence, you could tell like there was some uncomfortableness on like Owens' part, because his cadence was completely off. Like, Punk's still doing his panto lines and that sort of thing, and you're like...
Oh, he was doing his whole... Like, he rehearsed, again, with Punk, you can always see when he rehearses a bunch of shit in the mirror. He stood in front of the mirror and was like, this is gonna pop him! And then half the time it doesn't, because nobody knows what the fuck he's talking about.
Yeah, and they never will. But there we are. No. Yeah. And then I will have to be anticipating, apparently, a Hiromu Takahashi debut on SmackDown at some point soon.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
At least he's getting paid. He'll probably make more in the first year, like, than he made in the last 10 in New Japan. That's quite frightening, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sorry. But, we'll see how he goes. And let's move over to his former home. And I can be happy now, because I don't want to talk about sad Punk promos anymore. Sad Punk promos, fuck off. Right, New Japan Pro Wrestling. We today had the final of the G1 Climax, and Royaiwa defeated Yuma Umura in the final, in front of 7,200 in Ryogoku Kukukan. And it just capped off what has been just a fucking awesome tournament. Just one of the best tournaments that I can think of as a cumulative, full of so many different stories that kind of highlighted so many different wrestlers. And even when, like, at the start, it lost one of the most prominent people in it in Shota Umino after one night, with potential concussion symptoms. So to be able to deliver that, and for all of these young guys, essentially, to be able to step up and be supported by the veterans in there has just been incredible. And you have this final, which I think you'll see kind of really divisive takes depending on which side of the tribalist they sit on. But for me, what was key about this is you had this 35-minute final where everything was about these very basic moves that were all kind of essentially New Japan. It's all about the stuff that they teach them in the dojo, right? It's about things that they come in with, and it's part of this thing that they're doing of kind of recentering the kind of the ring work. And it doesn't mean that you get completely rid of the kind of what you would have thought the previous house style was, with lots of the big kick out finishes. What we really see in AEW now, you know, a lot of the AEW style is built off that big show New Japan style in the 2010s. You still have that. You can still get your Goto Takeshi. You can still get your Shingo, you know, Goto and all that sort of thing. But you've got these other wrestlers now coming through who are trying different styles. So Oiwa, who wins a tournament, his whole thing is establishing a headlock submission as a finisher. And he starts that, like, in the build through the tournament. He can't get Tsuji with it, but then he wins every other match following that with it. And it's like, you build that story. So then when they're doing it in the final and he like just gets anywhere close to it, the crowd are up. And then you've got Umaro using, you know, arm bars and that sort of thing. And you're doing kind of the you know, move that you would have seen that Oiwa beat Newman with. It's just a clothesline. It's just like a discus clothesline, or a spinning clothesline, like the grip. So it's like, they're very, very simple things, but it's not like they're re-educating their audience, but they're kind of redistributing kind of the match style. So it's not all one thing. You don't all have to be this one thing. So we've had matches like with like Tsuji and Yota Tsuji just built around chops, like a ridiculous amount of chops. We've now got matches about arm bars. We've got matches about... It's just different. And I think it feels fresh, because I think this year for me, personally, right, is I have been a little bit bored with wrestling in times. Because it's all felt very, very, very similar. And all my worries about kind of... the style kind of globally becoming one style, and everything that's going on with AAA as part of the NXT WWE universe, quote unquote, and everything that's going on with CMLL becoming more Americanized and kind of removing a lot of the things that make them. All of that has kind of played out on screen, because I felt a lot of things have been very samey. Like, I've not really kind of got into something or invested in something. It just felt like you're watching something in the background. I do think that's the same with programs as well. I don't think there's been many programs to be invested in this year. I can't think of many programs that made me feel emotionally like I need to see what happens next week. And this tournament comes out, and all of a sudden you've got all these young guys doing really, really different things from each other, and kind of competing in their visions for how they see pro wrestling, but not being forced to kind of accommodate it into a house style or something like that. And it's like, it felt like, I said to someone this morning, it felt like a resistance to that kind of, we all have to be the same. That's what wrestling has kind of felt like it fell into in the last few years, and especially in New Japan, where you had this domination of the heel tactic, House of Torture stuff everywhere, all over the car, including, if you think about last year, where we had Evil and Takeshita in the main event of the G1 finals. And it's like, halfway through, obviously they switch it up into being like a standard house style New Japan match with Evil trying. But it's like, it just dominated. It got to a point where it was in the G1 main event. And now we're here a year later, and you've got two young guys in the final who called the match for the majority on the fly. It wasn't all planned out beforehand. They literally called it in the ring, who the crowd were invested in every single little thing they do. And I'm not really into like grapple fuck or any of those kind of phrases that are put out. But this is about building investment in something and getting the crowd to invest in something, rather than it is about we just do technical moves. And yeah, I loved it. I love what they did with it, because it was so simple, but it just felt so different. It feels so fresh. And you've got this tournament now where, you know, Oiwa is now going to challenge on October 12th at Ryogoku. And it's like, he gets that big shot. Do I think he'll win? Not really. But you've taken this guy that at the start of the year was like, why is this guy not doing anything? He went across to Noah, he did his excursion, he looked fantastic, he comes back, he's not doing anything, and the rest of these Railroad guys are. You know, Ren Narita's getting more of a push than Oiwa. Why is that? Look how great he is. And in the space of one tournament, you've taken this guy that had to play in, he had to qualify essentially for the tournament to start, and you've made him the winner. Like, that is as big an elevation as you can get in pro wrestling. And now he's going to main event in Ryogoku in October. Great. And then you have Umura, who was not supposed to be in the final. It was supposed to be Shota Umino. Oiwa was always winning, by the way, but it was supposed to be Shota Umino. You have him, and he takes that position, and now you've set up his next part of his story. So you lost a New Japan Cup final, you lost the G1 final, you've never won a trophy in New Japan. You've actually inherited some of what we thought Shota Umino's story was going to be, and you can play off that now. And I think today what they did really well as well is they made him the antagonist because they knew more people would be behind Oiwa, and that worked really well as well. You didn't try and fight it. You didn't try and go 50-50. You went, we're just going to go with this. So I think he's finding more of his role. And he's still, I give him a lot of criticism. I always say he's got no brain cells. I know that's kind of harsh, isn't it? But he's still finding himself. So you give him more time, but he's been elevated. And then, Callum Newman, again, has a strong G1 following on from having the world title. Obviously, he's got plans elsewhere. Keep him away from being pretend Will Ospreay, and he's fantastic. Even older guys like Sanada, right? Like, everyone coming to the tournament thinking he'd be fucking awful, but he's managed to kind of fulfill his veteran role really well. He's set up for his babyface turn. And then you have Oleg Bolton, who is this incredible power guy who sells so fantastically well. And when you put them in with the right people, it's like, he's got it now. And you have a different style there from what all the rest of them can play. And then they're all chasing Yota Tsuji, who is the champion now. He's the champion, he's the ace, he's the guy they all chase. And, I think for me, when I look at his G1, I think about that match at Korakuen with Oleg Bolton. And I know you've seen that match. What did you think of that one, watching it from someone from the outside?
I thought it was great. I really liked it a lot. I thought it was. I liked how they played with Tsuji basically being the guy. He's basically like, you got to beat me, and I know you can't, right? And then beat the shit out of him at the beginning, and then Bolton surprises him kind of with the comeback at the end, because Bolton, like you said, his selling is amazing. He's selling like he's fucking dying. I'm like,
oh, this guy especially.
Yeah, I'm like, this guy's done. Like, end this match already. Like, it was almost like Tsuji was like humiliating him at different points. But I never got I don't know, my impression with Tsuji, and some of it's affected by what you've told me, is more along the lines of like, prove it, beat me. He was like toying with him, right? And then he fucking fired up at the end, and he actually fucking won. And I was really impressed by that. It was a very good match that I very much enjoyed watching. I was glad you, I don't want to say made me watch it, but you were like, you should watch this. And I was like, okay.
So before I talk about how Tsuji's kind of helped everyone with his tournament and why he's kind of the MVP. Also, Oiwa has been like the big breakout. Bolton's broken out somewhat as well. Wolf has shown up and is going to be pretty huge, I think, in next year. But Tsuji is kind of the one that stitches it all together. What do you think of his presentation, particularly the big question? Are you or are you not a Majaniac? Sorry.
It's an awful theme song. I'm sorry. I was like, I have vague memories of Tsuji's previous theme song. And so I'm watching the entrance, and he comes out, and they start with whatever. And then all of a sudden it's like some record scratch moment. And then there's like a 10-year-old girl singing. And I'm like, what is happening here? Like, this is culturally, I'm not understanding this, and that's fine. But I was just like, okay, sure. But it's just odd to me. It's just odd. I don't know that it suits what he is doing, but if his goal is to piss everybody off, success.
I quite like it, but I think it's very Eurovision. But I think he's just...
It's very Eurovision.
I think he's experimenting with his whole kind of look and things. And he's still a young guy. Like, so you do those sort of things. It wasn't that long ago. He's
definitely like... He's got like a dad bod, and I mean that as a compliment, like as a deep, deep compliment, where I'm like, this man looks like, he reminds me a little bit of like the most nicest compliment I could pay for Hangman, which is like, he looks like he got his muscles doing actual work and not like endless reps in a gym. Because quite frankly, that's more of my interest than some guy with just fucking endlessly defined muscles. So
yeah, especially as you get older as well, isn't it? The interest tends to be in people that look real rather than
yeah. He looks like a real person. He looks like a real person who is strong as fuck.
Yeah. So the thing with him this tournament is he has really helped to kind of stitch everything together, and I don't think it's just him. I talk about Zach and that in a bit, but it's like, what he does is he's presenting them as something to chase, and it's made me appreciate what Okada did more. Will I ever appreciate the 20 minutes of absolutely fucking nothing in Okada 30-minute matches? No. I'm never going to be a fan of the structure of some of his matches in the past. But I appreciate his role as the War more, and I think when I really got into New Japan, I was kind of like, these guys are more over than him. these guys get a better reactions than him. They sell merch, they're selling more tickets. Why is he the guy with the belt? And I kind of get it more now, like, than I did then, because you can see the evolution of it. It's like they need somebody to chase. So you have an Oiwa, you need someone to chase. You have Umura, who still has gaps in his kind of whole presentation, needs fixing out. He needs something to chase. You need these veteran guys to have someone that they can go up against, that the crowd will get behind them. And he's very, very good at the role, and he knows that's his role. Everything he says, this is what gets me about him, and this is why it's worked so well. Every single person that gets in the ring with him on this tour, other than Great O'Khan, who should be smashed into the sun, and he even called him out and told him to go sort himself fucking out afterwards too, in the most public way that you can in Japanese wrestling without actually saying it. But everyone that gets in the ring with him is better coming out of it. Like, they built the Oira story coming out of it. He's building these rivalries. You've got this thing that you can do with Oleg Boltin now. You're going to do the Goto thing at Destruction in Kobe. You can do the Sanada thing down the road as well, and that was like probably one of the least anticipated matches in the tour that ended up being fantastic. Like, nobody saw that coming. He's making everyone better that's in there with him, and he's so good at the details. It's all the little details in the work that he did, the way he structures the matches around his opponents, so you get the most out of him. That's exactly what you need in that position. And you can say he's all talk, and you can do that, but you're not all talk when you're the guy going out at the start of the year and, making the trading card comments and then getting in the scrap back, or not an actual scrap, but getting in the shouting match backstage over, actually, I need to stand up for these people. It's not an act. It's not playing Naito. It's literally like, I understand what they need from me, and we need a whole group. The whole emphasis is on the whole group. His whole backstage comments last night were just like, literally, like, we've had a great summer. This is a great start of us, being with TV Asahi and stuff, because they always talk about corporate stuff in Japan. It's a bit weird, isn't it? But it's like, but I now leave it to finish it off to Oira and to Umura. And it's like, it's not just him. He doesn't need to be over the top of everything. He doesn't need to be in the ring or around everything when anything happens. He understands his role perfectly. And if you are bored of seeing him with the belt, you better get used to it, because he's going to keep that thing for some time, I think. But yeah, he's just really, really stepped up in that role. And I think that's allowed all these other guys to step up as well. And I think when I look back at last year, I had many conversations with people who were talking about the young core group in New Japan. And one of the biggest criticisms was they're apprehensive and they're not assertive enough. And the pushback I always thought was quite accurate was, well, they're not in these big spots yet. How can they be assertive when they're the guys underneath these other guys? They need to be put in those pressure spots to see what... It's like the diamond thing, right? You have to put pressure on them and then you see what you get. Right. And that's exactly it. So you put pressure on them. Now this year, you've put pressure on Tsuji. Guess what? He's turned out to be a champion, and a drawing champion at that. And then you've put pressure on Callum Newman, and he turned out to do well in that spot. You put pressure on Oiwa. He's turned to be he looks like a fantastic babyface going forward, who can make simple things work and isn't afraid of that. You put pressure on Bolton after 3 years of kind of cycling him in from nowhere. He never wrestled. Bolton never wrestled or had any interest in wrestling before 3 years ago. And now he's there. Like, this is the development path. And it's all about, you give them an example and you allow them to have that assertiveness. And then they're calling main events of the G1 Climax in the fucking ring. Like, this is such a departure from where they were properly before. And part of that as well is that, yeah, you don't have the veterans to go over. You don't have Okada. You don't have Naito. But you do have Shingo. You do have Goto. You do have Zack Sabre Jr. You can't see the hands of these senior people all over this. Like, you're not looking far enough. It's like, these guys are supporting those coming up. They make so much emphasis today of everyone to tell Oiwa how proud they are of him. It's only a little thing, but when you look at other companies, where it's all about controlling the main event scene and controlling who comes in and controlling what they get and what momentum they get and who they talk to, and basically essentially controlling their careers. That's a phrase I've heard a lot this year. Like, there isn't that here. They're just getting support. And look at the difference it makes. And now you've got this fresh product that did over 50,000 tickets for the tour. First time since 2023. Second highest New Japan G1 Climax tour of the post-COVID era. And 2023, there are a few thousand behind that. What G1 was that? Oh, that's one Naito one. I don't think it's very bad when you do that. And last year, we thought, not a fucking chance of this. It was like, how do they alleviate the fact that, they're not going to have a Tanahashi last tour on this? We thought it would drop again, and it's not. And that is because this is exciting. Like, like, this is the one thing in wrestling that feels exciting right now to me. And I know that you probably have, our listeners probably have other promotions that they're excited by. There might be a program they're excited by. We did the preview of All In. There's going to be great matches on that show. It should be a great show, very much like Double or Nothing. Am I excited for it? No. Sorry. I wish I was. I want to be excited for it, and I'm not. And I'm not, because of the way the build has been, the way other things have been, and the lack of emotional investment. And it just feels like a continuation. It doesn't feel like anything new. I don't feel fresh. I don't feel energized by it. This is energizing because it's different. And they are not afraid to be themselves. What they're doing is essentially day one New Japan. We've got Boston Crabs. We've got arm bars. We've got headlocks being used. And it's not about, oh, we need to be this style or that style. No, it's this whole convergence of styles rather than it just being one house style. And these new characters for people to latch onto and build their journeys to, because they haven't seen them on TV for 30 fucking years. It's fun. It's fun. And like, I've enjoyed it. It's been a great tour. They've got great setup now going into the fall, because they've just brought in Sean Skywalker from Dragon Gate. They're going to debut him in a singles match in Kobe, the home of Dragon Gate. Makes perfect sense. There's organisation here that was not fucking here last year. I tell you now, it feels like a different world entirely. And then they're going to do Goto and Tsuji, which should have an incredible crowd for that. Fully behind Goto, that's what they want in this thing. And then you go into the fall. So they are really, really well set up. And I don't remember the last time I could say that about New Japan Pro Wrestling. Like, I think we all were very apprehensive at the start of the year of what does it look like with no Tanahashi? We have no Naito. We have no Okada. What does it look like? We've lost some of the younger guys that look promising, for the foreign guys especially. And we have the answer now. And the answer is you invest in yourself and you invest in these people and look what they become. And you can't do that with every group. The group before the Young Lions were shit, to be honest. Great O'Khan, they gave him Tenzan's chops, who obviously retired this week. They gave him everything they can. They gave him wins over Okada. They gave him wins over Naito. And he needs to fuck off. Or, what does Tsuji say? Well, if you want to be a card game representative, maybe get good at this pro wrestling thing first. Yeah. And then Tsuji, for the best thing is his job is to make everyone else look great as champions of Wall, but he's also building his own thing because he wants to beat all the V5 challengers. And you can see set up now, like they're doing, him and Naito are now fucking about, which is like interesting to me, obviously. But it's like, that match is going to happen because that came out of nowhere. Then all of a sudden Shingo starts talking about Naito, and then Naito starts talking about Tsuji, and you're like, okay, yeah, can see this going. This is where we're going now. At some point that's coming. You've got so many other people that you can go back to. So they'll do the Sonata one. I feel like with the way Shingo's interacting with some of the Death Riders, you can set a Moxie one up hopefully somewhere there. The Ospreay one, I don't know if it's going to happen now. That's interesting, isn't it? But there's enough that you can kind of fry off. And, if you wanted to attack New Japan for development, or talent development, this ain't the year to do it. Because this has been it's just such a refreshing tour. I get up and I'm excited to watch wrestling again, and that's not really happened so much this year. I think it's been kind of, a little bit down, kind of downtrodden in terms of enthusiasm with the same. I just felt like we've been in a warp, like the same programs, the same things, nothing fresh, nothing that feels invigorated. So yeah, this has been a great tour. We got a couple of questions. I like this one, so from Pylon. So, what do you think is the future moving forward for Forbidden Door? It seems like it'd be hard to feature most of the current top New Japan guys if they're working this throwback style. I think it could get over in the US, but it'd take more discipline and time than the Forbidden Door is usually able to get.
I feel like Forbidden Door is a tough one for me because you have to sell it as a... we talked about this a lot. Like, you had a lot of fans who waited a very long time to see certain people match up with each other. And the golden years of AEW and like post-COVID, 21, 22, 23, you kind of got all those dream matches. Mm-hmm. So what are you going to do moving forward that's going to keep that level of interest? And I think I'd love to see more tags and multi-man matches and like people on teams that you wouldn't expect to be on teams with each other. Mm-hmm. I'd like to see them integrate CMLL more and, have it be like a true three-way partnership rather than it feeling like an AEW pay-per-view. The last couple of years, it's felt like an AEW pay-per-view with a couple of guys from other promotions in there. I think the challenge... Right. The challenge is keeping it fresh when they can have Mystico on a Rampage on a Friday night for no reason, right? When, they have a lot of these New Japan legends that are available to that work for them now, right? So I think there's probably ways to keep it fresher, but I would also I think it's better for New Japan to some degree to protect itself more than it has in previous years as well.
Yeah, so when it comes to these different styles, I think you can incorporate them. I think there's wrestlers that would enjoy working like that. There are adaptable wrestlers in AEW, right? There's your
Yes.
Fletchers, your Omegas, your Page, these guys that like to do, like, Page sticks in my mind this week because he's just pretending he's a cruiserweight now. He's back in the trios, isn't he? It's like,
Yeah.
oh my God. But you have people there, like Takeshita especially, obviously you see that in this tour as well. Like, he's really found himself on this G1 tour because he's just able to be him, and he's getting across as a babyface now rather than that pressure spot. It just wasn't the right spot for him last year. But you have all these people that can adapt to that and work different styles. Would it work with a crowd if it's good enough? Yeah, if it's good enough, I think you can make it work. Umaro did pretty well when he did, even just in the tag. But that's where, you put them in the tag scenario, you kind of get them used to that. I mean, that's also about New Japan building themselves, continuing to build themselves in the US. And I think them doing the opening night at the G1, where it's just around their people. It wasn't, this is Tanahashi's last match in the US, or this is a cross-promotional match between Jon Moxley and Tetsuya Naito. It was just, this is our current crop. This isn't a New Japan strong show with 20 former, golden era New Japan talent that are now in AEW on, and some independent talent, everything else thrown in. So they have to be really clear about what their brand is in the US. And I think that they've kind of figured that out now. I don't think we'll see a strong branded show maybe ever. I just don't. I think there'll be some news on that front coming up soon. But yeah, I don't see that at all anymore, because the whole thing is, this is New Japan Wrestling, pro wrestling now. And when you look at all the styles and everything that everyone's talking about with this, and there's some silly rhetoric about it, but the key thing is like, these are our guys, so we need to show you our guys, and the only way you're going to continue to do that is to build that brand up in the US, and you can't do it for AEW. It sounds nice, and if people think, as long as they get exposure on AEW television or AEW pay-per-view, it will help them with New Japan.
Yep.
I don't think that does. I think you're right, that the whole anticipation of the first couple of years of Forbidden Door was because they didn't interact in that way. You didn't see, Okada running around TV in 2020, 2021. It didn't happen. You didn't have Tanahashi doing the same thing. In fact, when Jericho goes to wrestle Tanahashi at Wrestle Kingdom in 2020, that's special, because one, it was the AEW World title being defended there, but also it was 2019. Oh my God, I'm losing my mind. But it was always 2020. When was COVID? 2020. Yeah, 2020. But also it was it did feel forbidden, because it was there was no relationship between them. So you almost have to rebuild that anticipation back up to be able to have these as kind of big name matches, or to feel different, and then you can do the different styles. I don't think AEW fans have any issue with that if you do it in the right way, because if you look at that first Forbidden Door, it felt so different, and there was a lot of different style of matches in that on there, and it felt so different because you were doing it with everyone in this environment, and it felt like not like a culture clash, but it felt like different ideologies kind of mixing together, different ways of being, baby faces, personas, all those sort of things. And that was really cool, right? You had this meshing. It felt like you were meshing things together that don't normally get meshed, even though some of the styles are so similar, and so many of the top guys in AEW have continued to come out of New Japan. And that does feel still like the biggest talent base, because they don't really produce their own, do they? You look at the top of their roster going forward now, how many of those people made their development in New Japan? Even the younger guys, your Fletchers, Unites, that sort of thing. So it's still a critical kind of thing for them. But I don't think it hurts AEW for New Japan to be trying different styles amongst their top group of people, because it will help eventually that AEW style to evolve as well. But it is about making your own stars. It's about making your kind of own people bigger. And that's why everything that Tsuji's doing, as much as they hate it and get worked by it, it's it only makes him stronger. And it will only make, when you eventually do that match now down the road, you're going to make those matches bigger. He's done everything he can this year to make himself bigger about America without actually spending much time in America. It's quite impressive. But yeah, that's all it is. And I would skip Forbidden Door next year, to be honest. I would skip it. I know they kind of doing it. Obviously, they dropped a little bit in pay-per-view buy rate this year compared to the ones before. But I would skip it next year and just let New Japan kind of really figure themselves out. And also, you're not overexposed with CMLL talent, but you treat them as very much TV workers, that they don't feel special. Mystico doesn't feel special in a way that he did when he first showed up. That sort of thing.
No,
So
he
unless
doesn't.
unless you're going to put him in like big spots, that sort of thing, I wouldn't bother. So that is that on that. Jeff Cobb, by the way, did the most worst social media thing before coming back to New Japan today, where he pretended he had some sort of surgery because everyone actually knew because it got out. That was quite impressive. He continues to be one of the worst users of social media.
The picture was just disgusting.
Yeah, he's a weirdo. I don't know. He's back there. He lives there. It'll work better. If it means Okar moves down the card, I don't care. So, yeah, there's that. We had one more question from last week that we didn't get to, but I thought it was kind of an interesting one, so I didn't want to waste it, so we just rolled it over. It said, hi Trish and Sarah, hope all is well. I saw this question pop up on Twitter and was curious about your feelings on it. Do you guys see yourselves being as invested in wrestling in 2030 as you are now? And that's from Lamora.
Lamora coming right for the girls. Will the Trish and Sarah Wrestling Podcast last 7 years? Leah's kill me now.
Oh my god, it would be 7 years by then.
Well, we're at almost 3 now.
Are we? No, we're not.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, we are.
Serious? It's not been 3 years. You've had to put on with me for 3 fucking years.
Well, we were also friends before that, so yes.
I know. Well, you
this is like when Tunnel Talk was like, how many all-ins have there been? And I almost had a stroke on my walk because I was listening to it, and then I calmed down. But now I'm questioning myself. Like, I feel like you're gaslighting me. That I'm like, have we been going on for 3 years? And I'm like, no, we totally have been going for 3 years.
That's crazy.
We started in September of 23.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah. So,
oh my god. Okay.
Yeah. I think yes. I don't know if I'll be like, so listen, I'll be completely blunt. I think one of the downsides of the podcast is that like I can't take a 6-week break, right? Mm-hmm. Like we can't take a 6 week, we talked about being like you talked about being slightly like about wrestling. Ideally, I think you take a little break and you're like, oh, I'm just not going to watch this for like the next couple weeks and I'll snap back into it when I see something that's interesting me. And I think the downside of the podcast sometimes is that you kind of can't do that. I mean, you can, but then people stop listening or you...
We do try sometimes. Like, we do
something different.
Yeah, and there are times where life kind of... We're not slaves to it, are we?
Well, no, because we have actual jobs. So, like, you know, I'm not going to... If my life gets in the way, I'm not getting... Trish, we're not getting paid for this. I don't know if you're getting paid for this, there's a problem, but I'm not getting paid for this. So, like, if something happens, it's more important to me. I will, step back. But I think as interested is a loaded question. I think interested, yes. As interested, I don't know. I don't know what my life is going to be like in 2030. I'm not one of those 5-year plan people.
No.
I'm not one of those 1-year plan people.
I'm not one of those one-day plan people.
I was going to say, I'm unclear on what I'm doing this week. Let's be realistic. So,
yeah. So, I've been watching wrestling now for 30 years, on and off. And there's times where I've taken breaks. There's times where I've stepped away from watching particular promotions or particular things. And that's healthy. I always say that to people. Like, if you're not enjoying something, and that's a different from, like, malaise, because sometimes things are just boring, you just kind of keep them in the background. And I've done that with promotions this year, where I've just kind of... I can watch them, but I'm not really invested in them. I just turn them off and I don't really think about them afterwards so much. But there's always something else that can be watched, or just stop entirely for a little bit and then figure yourself out. I don't think there's a harm in that. I don't think you need to watch everything. I think there's this concept of we must watch every single little detail. Like, no, you don't. Like, not in this life.
Well, I also think there's this sense from like, there are certain fans who, and I think this ties back to some of what we talked about when we talk about like male wrestling fandom and how they sort of, there's a correct way to be a male wrestling fan, right? And like some of that I think is like, well, if you haven't seen, these matches and you haven't watched this era of All Japan, like, can you even call yourself a wrestling fan? And it's like, well, you can. Like, you absolutely can. And like, it's okay if you didn't.
But then it's healthier to have people that have watched so many different things or see things differently or don't have the influence of other things. It's the same way with wrestlers, right? The wrestlers that don't have the same interest in wrestling growing up. We just talked about Olive Bolton. We talked about Kevin Knight previously. Like, we talk about these people all the time because it's like they have a different outlook of how to do things, and then they bring new things to the table rather than just resetting every feud again and again and again, like, hey, CM Punk. So it's like, I don't think that's a wrong thing. Like, it's great if you want to find out about these promotions or watch these matches from, the 90s or the 80s or whatever, great. But it's like, it's not key essential. I don't think that you have to. It
doesn't make you better than a fan who didn't watch them. No, it just makes you different.
And you may enjoy things differently. And there's nothing wrong with that too. Like, if you enjoy things differently, like if you enjoy things we don't enjoy, and there's someone that always messaged me about whenever we say anything about Cope, and I'm like, well...
No, I'm never going to stop hating that man. I'm going to be a generational... I'm going to be like fucking guy from Chappelle Show. Hate. Like, I'm sorry that man is dead to me.
We're going to wind you out like a toy in a few weeks.
No, I know. I just think...
But yeah.
Oh, I had a point, and now my point's gone, Trish.
I'm sorry.
I think, no, when we talk about... I think you think about like the amount of shit, an undeserved shit that folks like Jen Pepperman or Will Washington have gotten, right? Because they dared to be involved in wrestling and not have, like, quote unquote paid their dues by, doing something, being involved in wrestling since they were 15 years old. Mm-hmm. I frankly think wrestling would be better served by having some people who have, like, read a book or seen a movie. I know that a lot of you guys have gotten into wrestling from, like, your childhoods, and I don't want to say anything bad about that, but I think people who've gotten into wrestling as adults and who have encountered other media would be, like, could help you with the coherency of your storytelling, and not just your out-of-ring storytelling, but your fucking in-ring storytelling too, okay? Like, so that's a piece where I'm like, why is this happening? And it can't just be because Ric Flair did the same thing in, whatever territory in 1970, whatever. Like, congrats. Like, I'm glad, but, like, and this is where, like, some of my frustration with certain wrestlers who get applauded endlessly because they've, watched tape, but their stuff makes no narrative sense. Like, tell me a fucking story. It doesn't have to be like War and Peace, and it could just be this guy wants to beat this other guy, but it has to work and it has to make sense narratively.
Yeah, and I think, like, you will have things that appeal to you. So in terms of, like, how invested you're going to be in a product or a wrestler or just wrestling in general, it will always depend on how much the things that appeal to you the most are incorporated into each of these. Right. And for me, like, I love watching people... I always talk about it, it's very boring, but it's like, I like watching people develop. I like watching people before they become their final form, and then when they get there, and I appreciate the journey, which is probably why I'm so massively into this G1 that we've just seen, because it's full of that sort of thing. I hate watching people when they hit the ceiling and all the politics and stuff becomes involved, and you see them treading water, and you don't feel like they're getting what they're worth. That frustrates me. So that's why I like the opposite more. I like people that are very much detailed workers. They know, and that's not just like, story beats, or, they wear this clothing, or they do this thing in a promo and it called back. No, I like the people that know when is long enough, when is not long enough, like they can anticipate all these things. They put the detail in so it matches what you get in from the crowd as well, that they can pivot, that they can anticipate, all that sort of thing. I get a kick out of watching all that sort of stuff. And it's like, so, there was a big match this year that I felt like was completely out of place from where it should have been. People absolutely loved it. That's for them. For me, I was just like, I don't think that this match should have been there, or they should have done something different, because it just didn't fit the place and time. I like, but it's that whole thing of everything has to be bigger and better, right? Or we need to do this thing even if it doesn't fit. So I always have anything on that. I do think for me, it's like doing this kind of probably invigorates me in some way, because it keeps me a focus.
Yes.
And we have the ability, because we do every couple of weeks, going behind the parapet here, and because there's so many different things to talk about, there's times where we can just avoid our subjects for like 6 weeks, and we have done. But that's also healthy, because if there's something you really don't want to talk about, and all you know is you're going to be completely negative about it, then just you don't talk about it. Like, it's just not... if it doesn't feel worthwhile talking about at that point, or you don't feel strongly about it, like, it's difficult. So just don't. And sometimes
I think
it
that's,
helps.
I mean, I do think that's the benefit. And like, I think you and I both were firmly, when we talked about doing this, on the side of like, we're not doing a recap podcast because there's just so many fucking recap podcasts. God bless all of you. But I
I
couldn't
don't know how you
imagine
do
having,
it.
I could not imagine having enough to say about wrestling that I would talk about it at like multiple times a week, let alone once a week. Like, again, God bless all of you.
Yeah, we're struggling on this, doing like back-to-back weeks sometimes.
Hence this long involved answer to Lamora's basic question.
Yeah, it's the short answer is, as long as things keep appealing to me in the way that they do currently, and there's things for me to enjoy, I will probably always be invested in some
AKA
way.
Big Yota.
You're not starting this now, right?
The Gene Blast. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
You just had to turn out. I was being dead serious, and you're just like, he's your new special little guy now. He's replacing it. What's going to happen when he wrestles Naito? What the fuck am I going to do?
Again, Trish, this is like,
do?
Insert biblical reference here to children fighting each other. Cain versus Abel. God damn, it's been a while since I've read a Bible. Ugh. Something mythology, something. Me shitting on wrestlers for not watching books or reading movies, and then being completely unable to come up with some kind of reference.
Trish and Sarah, long-time listener, first-time caller. I have a question for Trish.
Oh, no.
Next Forbidden Door, it's a trios, or it's a three-way match between Tsuji, Hangman, and Naito. What's happening?
Why are you doing this to me?
Ladies and gentlemen, producer Leah makes her first appearance on the podcast to give Trish a total mental breakdown. Thank you all. You've heard it here, episode 70.
We're on 68.
Fuck, we are on 68. Shit.
We're keeping that in. What would I do? See, I've had this before when, when Moxie wrestled Naito and stuff, and I was like, I don't know. And then, like, you watch the match and you're like, oh, okay, it's Naito. So
I do think you would figure it out while it was happening. I think it would happen and you'd be like, oh, yep, no, it's this one. And
we just pick one. We just pick one. Pick a slug, and away we go. Thanks, Leah. Yeah, now you've put the fear of doom into me that they do something like that, because
if they ever do, it's going to be specifically for you. It'll be like,
is this how Rich Latter felt when it was like Kenny and Swerve?
It'll have to be like, you'll have to be like Dave in Arena, Mexico, where they'll put you on camera while it's happening.
It's me with my like two little towels and like what does Hangman have that you can hold up?
A hat.
Bandana.
You can borrow Emmy's hat.
Yeah, I've got a cowboy hat in one hand and two like Japan towels of LIJ towels in the other. I'm trying to join into free chants. Okay. Yeah. Well, that answer went out of control. There we are. That'll do for now. You've just put. I never want to see that match. I don't want to choose. Don't let me do it.
Psychic damage has been dealt. Folks.
Yeah, Naito and Tsuji is going to be bad enough now. Like I'm not going to cope well, but at least it'll be like Tsuji will play the bad guy and Naito the good guy, and it'll be very, very fun. So, and he'll hopefully make sure that his knees were good in the Shane Hayes match. He was good in the Shane Hayes. Shane Hayes was incredible. I did not get
to this. Trish sent me a link to it, and I am so sorry. Excuse me, as I Brian Alvarez this moment didn't watch it.
It's so good. Shout out to Shane Hayes.
I will watch it. You sent me the link. I will watch it.
No, shout out to Shane Hayes for what he did going into Noah there, and for Keno and TMDK for getting him in, because they just did such an incredible job with that. And I've not watched a Naito match that good in years. I was very, very excited, nearly running around the house. So yeah, right. This is enough talk about my slugs. Now we're going. This has been.
It has been.
It has been. This has been episode 68 of the Trish and Sarah Wrestling Podcast.
You know that means next time is episode 69.
Which is the one after All In.
Oh.
No cokes allowed.
Are we going to have to push that then? Is it going to be on the Sunday? Folks, we may end up doing something a little funky with that one, because I want to...
Yeah, we'll figure that out.
We'll figure that out. We'll think about that and figure that out. Folks, live planning our next show on the podcast. Yeah, 69, dudes.
If you are heading to to London for All In. Hope you enjoy your weekend. Hope to see as many of you there as possible. Now we're going to see some of you, some of our listeners there, and some of our friends there as well. It's always very much a good time catching up with everyone. Probably the best part about these weekends for sure, whether it be Wrestle Kingdom or All In. So if you are heading to London, enjoy it. Have a look at the transport before you go, the way we're going lately. Everyone's a mess. It's been very warm lately, but hopefully we'll be okay. Hopefully the weather is good. It's bank holiday weekend. We're always petrified of the weather, but yeah, hopefully everything works out and we all have a great day and a great night. So that will be then. So that will be in 2 weeks' time. Until then, you can listen to all the other great podcasts on our network, wherever you get your podcasts, whether it's Red Circle, Spotify, take your pick. And that includes the wonderful Tunnel Talk, which comes out every Sunday at midnight your time in the East Coast, I guess.
Yep, 5 a.m. your time.
Which includes our wonderful producer Leah, who does everything to get these shows out to you. Dealing with all my technical failures and everything else. So
all my emotional failures.
Yeah, and thanks, Leah, for your run-in. Thanks.
That was a great run-in. That was a classic run-in.
Emotional torture from our producer there. But yeah, no, thank you, Leah. That sounded really funny, didn't it? Yeah, emotional torture. Thanks. Yeah, thanks, boss. You can speak to everybody at Tunnel Talk as well as everyone on our network on a Social Suplex Discord. Bring your burners, bring everything else, bring your false aggregation. I don't fucking know. Bring whoever you want. I don't care at this point. It's quite funny. We see you. But yeah, you come and join us there. And you can also stop laughing. And you can also contact us on Twitter at Trish and Sarah. You can contact us on Blue Sky. You can email us at trishandsarahpod@gmail.com. We'll be back in 2 weeks at some point. We'll let you know around our all-in schedule, because obviously it doesn't make more sense to do it before then, so we'll definitely do it after, and that should be quite the show to review. So until then, I have been Trish.
I have also been Sarah.
Why are you also?
I don't know. I tried.
Is there a second Sarah? Do we have a second Sarah?
There's a million Sarahs, please.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Well, this has been the Trish and Sarah Wrestling Podcast episode 68, and we thank you for listening.